It's podcast time of the lovers. I'm going to try to at least wait like 5 minutes before I start cussing and see if that gets us up in the YouTube ratings.
Let's see, I think YouTube's 10 minutes.
Shit.
10 or 15.
Shit. All right, well, fuck YouTube then. So
I think it just demonetizes. I don't know.
Well, I need that money. Almost an agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Go to the website, almostagreement.com. I'm about to start working on the Election Guide 23. We've got a few more people have announced their intent to run for an exciting city race in 23, which will include the mayor. So I've got some bones to pick with the city of Knoxville, but we'll talk about that as things transpire. You know me, I'm always mad about something. Anyway, almost an agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Website's almostagreement.com. We're on all major podcast providers. Give us a like, share, friend, follow, all those things. Tell your friends about us. Help us spread the word. Shout out to another listener whom we are their top number of hours listened this year. Which she said, she said straight up, she's like, it's only because your shows are so damn long. I was like, yeah, okay, I'll take it. So essentially, like what she was getting at was that it would be half,
right?
The half the hours listened if we did an hour show, which is most of the stuff she listens to is hour long. So,
true.
You know, and plus, but I mean, I don't know, like because she's listening, like she likes the interviews with the candidates stuff, and so if you get into all the episodes, I mean, there's some weeks where I had like 6 hours,
right?
Between the big show and interviews and stuff like that, and so you know, whatever. This is what we do, and I'm not going to change what we do for it, but shout out to our poker player friends out there. Apparently there's a lot of poker players that listen to us, so I do miss that. That Downtown Grill and Brewery game was as good as it got. Dan's not there anymore, so I doubt it's as good, but Dan Goss put a good game together.
Had to go and open up his own restaurant.
Yeah. I mean, that was crazy, though, because it was I remember when we first started playing down there, I remember one weekend, or one Monday night, we got real excited because it got to 3 tables. Like, we had enough people for 3 tables. Where are we going to put the 3rd table, Dan?
Yeah.
And then the last time I played down there, which wasn't that long ago, a couple of years ago now, it was just, you know, regular night, 120 players or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
All the time, like regularly breaking 100 players. So that's what, 11 tables minimum? That's craziness.
It's getting crazy.
Yeah. To the point where they had I think they capped it at 12 tables, and they would have up to 20 alternates that would go in with the first set of people that got out. So,
right.
Anyway, shout out to Dan Goss. Goss. But I got my dog tag I got my OG dog tag.
Got my mug.
I'm sure there's I'm curious where, because you were tops of the cumulative points list forever, right?
For a little while, not very long. In the early days.
Well, when the table, you only had to win one a month to be in the tops, to get up real fast once it got going, once it got to this bigger number of games. So, I don't know, I guess the top super most important story that's going on right now, other than the rain, would be...
What is it?
Brittny Griner's on her way home.
That's right.
Which, you know, I mean, I'm good with it. A little weird that, the guy that is nicknamed the Merchant of Death, I don't know if that's a fair trade. I feel like we should get another person like that Marine that they've got right now.
Didn't look to see how long he'd actually been in jail for.
It's been a while.
It was the one they made the movie about.
Yeah, and I'd heard the Breaking Point's they have a new spin-off show. It's real complicated. Anyway, basically the standard Breaking Points team is out of town right now, and so they have their subs, and their subs used to work at the Hill also, and apparently this substitute host or whatever has been working with another federal inmate who's in prison who happened to be a cellmate of this guy who was reporting that he's real sick. So there should be very little concern that he gets back out there and starts dealing arms again, because he'll probably just go back to Russia to die.
Well, I don't know how factual the movie was, but I mean, I think
apparently
it came more down to his connections.
Yeah, apparently it's over-dramatized. You know.
Oh, I'm sure it was over-dramatized to an extent, but I mean, apparently he had family in the former Soviet republics that had access to all these excess munitions.
The inference,
you know what? There's people that want bullets and guns, and
right.
I'll be that guy.
Well, but especially when it's you're a UN or you're a what are the other big, United Nations, big economic meetings that we have every year.
Yeah.
Like if you're a member country and there's a conflict going on that for political purposes or treaty purposes or whatever that you can't get involved with, but you have a want for a certain warlord to take over or maintain power or whatever, you would go to this guy to be like, hey, help give them some, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We can't sell them weapons because we're Americans, but we want this guy to win.
Right.
So can you, maybe get them some cool shit?
Yeah.
And so it's, it apparently, yeah, like you said, it was all a connections game. Like it was the black book that he had that was really all that mattered, because he had contacts all over the world that had access to all sorts of shit.
Right.
And since he was not officially affiliated with any nation, he wasn't subject to the restrictions of a U.S. arms deal to have to be approved by Congress or anything like that. So he just went out and did it. But anyway, like the rumor is that he's super sick. So, I guess that's a good thing. But, tactically speaking, I feel like it was like if he's not sick, if he's going to go right back to work, I feel like it's a little bit of an uneven trade. I feel like we got the short end of the stick.
It's possible. I don't
know. But I mean, either way, it's good she's coming home. It's ridiculous that anybody. I mean, what's ridiculous about the story to me, and again to harp on how cool I think Joe Rogan is his initial reaction was, yeah, I think it's dumb. But what I think is really dumb is the hundreds of thousands of Americans who are in American prisons for possession of the same fucking thing. And he's like, I think it's really dumb that we're getting all bent out of shape about a foreign one when we have it all here, and we're not doing anything to fix that.
New tonight, 3 men are behind bars in
Shut up, WBR. I didn't ask for this.
Robin, hush.
All right, fine. Well, Robin Wilhoitz decided that we were talking about this. Didn't she retire? I thought she just retired.
No, that was Beth Haynes, I think, announced her retirement.
Anyway, since my computer has decided that we were going to talk about it. This this apparently happened back in October. These 3 dudes stole a bunch of shit from a TBI cruiser, and they, I guess 4 people total, stole a bunch of shit from a cop's car while the cop wasn't in it, I guess. And they got arrested, and now they're going to jail, whatever, which is logical. Yeah. I'd be curious to know if there's any disciplinary action on the officer. I feel like, as a responsible gun owner, if my gun was stolen, I would have some... Well, if my gun was stolen and I would have some at least personal issue with it being stolen and not doing something about it. You know what I'm saying?
What do you mean?
Like, I feel like as an officer, you're responsible for your tools.
Right.
If your tools are stolen, I feel like that would be a failure to do your job correctly.
Maybe partial responsibility, but I mean, if he had them locked up in his trunk, he has that expectation outside of someone like breaking the lock. I mean,
well, it's very unclear in the story how it happened.
Right.
It just says that this is what happened. Like it's unclear. Like they broke into his car sitting in his apartment parking lot, or if
he left the door unlocked.
Right, or if he was sitting on the side of the interstate pulling somebody over and dealing with that person and didn't notice them breaking into his car. Like it's very unclear.
That part of it was at different locations of different things that happened.
It reads to me like it was they stole all this shit out of one car. At least the WBIR version, because it goes on to say, these 3 guys were involved in a string of thefts that happened in October on one night. So on October 14th, between 3 and 6 a.m., the 4 of these guys were stealing stuff. They stole a handgun out of one of the cruisers, which was found around a month later in one of these guys' possession. They said Tennessee Highway Patrol ballistic vest, gas mask were also stolen out of a cruiser, which implies the second one, I guess. So they stole a pistol out of one, a gas mask, and a vest out of a second. Those were found with one of the guys again later. They also stole a KPD rifle from a cruiser. Oh, so they were just targeted. They're going around targeting cops. In another report, they were named in the theft of a gray backpack, a laptop, a passport, and a driver's license. They were also named in a vandalism incident. Authorities said they found videos from the thefts that showed this car with several people inside it. So, yeah. So they were just going around breaking and stealing shit out of people's cars. And the balls to go steal some shit out of cop cars. It's pretty ballsy. I don't know. That popped up in my news story, and I thought that was worth a mention.
Yeah. don't think that's that big of a story, but hey.
I don't know. It's pretty fucking nuts is all I was getting at.
Oh, that's crazy, but I'd say the naked man breaking into somebody's house is crazier than that.
Tell me more. I haven't heard the story.
I think it popped up as like similar stories or whatever. I think it happened on Westland. There's at some point for whatever reason the guy was naked, and I think somehow got into somebody's house. I think they somehow did damage inside the house, and I believe the homeowners.
I mean, if they rub their dick on something, it's destroyed.
Yeah.
I mean,
apparently he was shot by one of the homeowners, and I think last I heard he was in like critical or stable condition at that point.
Right. The homeowner is, or the guy?
The burglar.
The homeowner shot him?
The naked burglar. I think so. I think they said it was a gunshot.
Good for him. Good for him.
But I think they said the guy did some damage inside his house. I don't know if he was just like knocking shit over.
I mean,
just flipping out or what.
I don't know what I'd do, but I think that would be on my list of options. Would be to shoot him. Like, I don't know what do you do? Like, you know, how long do you wait? I mean, yeah, you call the cops. Don't get me wrong. You call the cops. Like, hey, there's some naked guy in my house. It goes back to my incident with the tree people and the KEB thing. It's like, what do? I don't know what the fuck you are, what you're here, why you're doing things. You just are in my yard.
You gotta check your mail more often.
I will argue that one to death. They send that every year. I get one of those in the mail every year. We're trimming trees in your area. That's not saying we're trimming your trees.
I know.
I'm saying I've lived in this house for 10 years, and I've gotten that letter 10 times, and this is the first time they actually showed up. You brought it up. No, I brought it up. It's a lie. Anyway, I don't know. Like, I just think I don't understand what I think. You know, I'm not excited that a man got shot, but I think that's the proper action of a homeowner. It's appropriate action of a homeowner. You can't wait 15, 30 minutes for the cops to show up.
I think it depends on the circumstance.
You're not obliged to wait, I guess is a better way to say it. You could. I don't think you should be obliged to. Like, I don't think it should be criminal to be like, well, I didn't feel like waiting to see what the weird, crazy naked guy was going to do next while I waited for your officers to arrive.
Right.
So I went ahead and neutralized the situation myself because I think I should have the right to do that.
Right.
So, Jalen Hyatt won some school award. That's exciting. First time a UT player has won the best receiver in the country award.
I saw somebody got.
Yeah, it's the college football awards night.
No, sorry, I was reading something else.
Yeah, Hendon Hooker
got voted like AP top player. But
got the snub.
I don't know if that was of any position and just generic college football player they got voted for.
It depends what the award is. That's what the Heisman is supposed to be, but it's not. I mean,
this is what are the AP
it's
called?
Bullshittery. I mean, there's a bunch of different journalism, and there's like a coach's poll and whatever.
Yeah, I think it was just like their AP poll of top football player or whatever. I didn't recognize the name, so I don't know. Who was it?
So I had a guy ask me as I was working my day job today. He's like, "Hey, you're going to talk about this on the show?" And I was like, "I don't really know what to talk about it." So he said Dana White, but that's the UFC guy.
It was QB Caleb Williams voted AP Player of the Year.
Oh, it's high school player.
Was it?
It's got to be a high school player.
No, USC, so University of Southern California. Yeah, I think it was just a generic football player of the year.
Weird.
You got 32 of the 46 first place votes.
Good for him.
Yep. Sorry, what were you saying about something?
This white guy, the whole
Dana White?
It's not. I don't think Dana White's the UFC guy.
Right.
But the guy that I was talking to misspoke and said Dana White when he was talking to me about it. I'm trying to find the story. So,
Whitey Bulger?
You heard about it last. I mean, like if you listen to the Compass guys, they talked about it last week on their show. There's two guys that were the what's it called?
Come on.
Lost their jobs for the whole incident with the golf cart.
Okay.
Like a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Like one was, I think it was Jacob's chief of staff, Mayor Jacobs' chief of staff, and the director of the Parks and Rec for the county. So essentially, they got they both got fired. The one guy, Brian or something like that, his sentencing is supposed to come out any day now if it hasn't already, because he pled guilty to misuse of public funds or some shit like that.
Right.
And so this white guy was suing the county for wrongful termination. And in the settlement for that, basically the county and his attorney and him agreed that, we'll settle for this amount of money, which was like $100,000 to him, 50 to his lawyer, and then for the record, you didn't get fired for a corruption issue of misusing funds or whatever. And so the county, I guess on Thursday or Wednesday of last week, put out a press release. There was like one sentence that said, Mr. White was not fired for corruption or mishandling of funds or something like that.
And then he turned around and was like, that's evidence saying that I got wrongfully fired.
And then like 30 seconds later, county puts out another press release that's just dogging this guy. Just like he's a piece of shit. He got fired because he was a terrible boss and blah, 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 blah. And so Mr. White takes...
From the same exact...
Yeah, from the county's press release, whatever. And so it's now become this big back and forth, which, again, like the guy that ran into me and asked if we were going to talk about it, I was like, I don't know what to say about it. To me, it feels like this white guy got caught, got fired instead of criminally investigated for a thing that he was a part of. And instead of being like, okay, well, I got away with it. I lost my job, but I don't have a criminal record out of my mishandling of taxpayer money, and moving on with his life, he said, you know what? Fuck those guys. I'm going after them. And so, you bring a lawsuit against the county, it's a big fucking deal. It's a bunch of effort and kind of bullshit like that. But it was basically like he feels like he knows something. There's something that's in his purview that he feels like is going to be damaged enough either directly to Mayor Jacobs or to the county at whole that they would rather settle with him, which is what they ended up doing, than let this thing continue and go on. And so they settle, which is his target in the first place.
Right. So I was about to say that's probably all it was.
But Mayor
he knew
Jacobs,
that they wouldn't want to have a protracted, dirt slinging, because lawyers aren't fucking cheap.
Right, but Mayor Jacobs apparently took it as okay, we're settled. Here's what I really think about you. And this turned Mr. White into, well, then fine, I'm going to spill the beans, and I'm going to make a mess, and I'm going to make your life difficult.
Jacobs made a public statement.
Not specifically, but it's the county, it's the mayor's office, right?
Okay. All right.
The statement comes from the mayor's office.
Gotcha.
And so it's just like
careful with your words of Jacobs saying this.
Well, it's his office. It would be like the administration when they say the White House administration public release statement says X.
Right.
By
different
default,
when they say Biden says this.
But by default,
take
that
that
is
as Biden says this versus the administration is saying this.
But if the administration says this, that is approved by Biden because it is his administration. It is an approved statement by him.
Correct.
But it is not him, quote, saying that. I agree. I apologize for the loose wording.
I just want you to be clear so people don't get confused.
Okay. It's a stupid, confusing story anyway. But anyway, moral of the story to me is this guy's just pissy, and Mayor Jacobs is also pissy because this guy's being pissy, and it's just a little pissing match. Yeah. And so I could
care less about that.
I mean, like I think Scott said it best in the Compass interview or Compass show last week. He's like, I find it really weird in that when you go through Knoxville and the big scandals and all these corruption issues that we've had over the years, they're all small. Like it's a golf cart here, or misuse of funds for this thing here, or somebody borrowing some tools out of the work shed or some shit like that and getting in trouble. It's like nobody goes big on their corrupt activities around here. And it's just like it seems like if you're in that position, it would behoove you, or maybe it would behoove of the county at large to put a
what'd you say?
Who of you? Or maybe it would be who of the county at large?
Behoove. Not be who of you.
Behoove you.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Is that your new little thing? So I got to say intents and purposes?
Yes.
Jesus. I forgot where I was going. No, I didn't. Yeah, I did. It would be worthwhile for the county to put some sort of like, hey guys, here's a simple way to make sure you don't do anything corrupty, basic, like, borrow a golf cart. Yeah. And make that a continual like effort to remind people.
I don't think we've had any major ones. I mean, there's been people that are in control of like money and spent, $50,000, $100,000 on kind of like paying themselves, or they were the one that were writing the checks and they're like writing checks to themselves and kind of shit like that.
Apparently there's some issue with one of the commissioners in some property deal that's going on, because as a commissioner in the property deal, it's made some news. I haven't really read into that one yet, so I don't want to go too far on it, but apparently she's having to like recuse herself from certain voting things because it may be directly impactful to her property or some shit like that. But
someone's on top of it.
Yeah, I mean, somebody's gonna figure it out. There's people just dying to fucking.
That's what the comptroller's for.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know. I've never talked to one. I don't know that they exist. I feel like it's like Santa Claus.
Yeah. You saying Santa's not real?
I didn't say anything.
Oh, okay.
I know lemonade and this beer are not going well together. Ooh. I had a lemonade I was finishing, and now I switched to my beer. And
I thought you were somehow drinking them simultaneously. I'm like, why would you do that?
I mean, I like a shandy. I like a lemon shandy, which is basically a lemonade beer.
Yeah, apparently Germany they call it like a lemonade. It's like lemonade and like a lighter beer, I guess.
Yeah. Radlers.
That they don't mind as much with like 15-year-olds drinking it.
No, because it's like 2.5% or something ridiculous.
Probably.
Well, it's like literally a 4.5% beer that's
cut in
half a glass with half a glass of lemonade.
Like, here's a bunch of sugar for you and some beer.
Right. I mean, those grapefruit Radlers are great. I love those. Those are like 3.5%, 4%ers. You can drink those by the gallon, not get hammered. If you follow this FTX story, it's pretty crazy. It's a national one.
Oh, they went bankrupt. Were they a crypto exchange company?
I'm still confused on exactly what they did. Because it's real convoluted, because it's that Alameda.
So is it the Dolphin Stadium that they're trying to get out of that?
Right.
They signed like a 5-year contract with them. They're like, wait, we don't want the stadium to be named after you anymore because you owe people $1 billion.
Well, I mean, I figure that contract's the other way. They don't get to keep the name on it if they're not paying their fucking royalties. I don't think it's a lump sum. I don't think you pay $10 million and your name's on the building for 5 years. I think you agree to $10 million over 5 years and pay $2 million a year or something like that.
No.
Anyway, either way, yeah. Some stadiums got it on it. They did a Super Bowl ad. They've spent a bunch of money.
Well, I think in that case, for them to take the name off legally, since they have a contract in place, they would essentially have to wait at least an entire year until he doesn't make that.
I mean, I don't know what the payment schedule is. I mean, I don't know what it could be.
Well, under your premise of
under my premise, if that
pay me $2 million a year,
right. But again, that doesn't mean that $2 million a year isn't spread out.
But they would have to leave
monthly.
that name up until they could finally take them to court to force them to not be breaking contracts.
I mean, I think if they file the bankruptcy, it's too late. I mean, I think the bankruptcy already declares they're not intending to pay, and you don't owe them. You don't owe them to finish what they did pay, per se, because they're already saying we're already breaking contract. We're already telling you right now we're not going to pay the next payment.
I sort of went bankrupt like a week or two after I heard about this thing.
Right. Well, that's the thing about it.
FTX blowing up, and FTX files for bankruptcy for blah, 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 blah.
That's the thing about it is it's functionally it's what crypto is anyway. It's they had their own tokens and some other stuff going on like that. It is the free market of free markets at play. Like for the true libertarian out there, they love the premise of one of these things, but they also say it's your risk. But on the weird, super specific financing things, like they clearly said in the terms of service that they would not loan against your tokens. So if I bought a token for $1,000, right, that I now own that token, and it's valued at $1,000, and that value will fluctuate or whatever. But at no point can they take the value of my token and use it to procure a loan elsewhere or loan that value to somebody else. It says that clear in their terms of service, and they did the shit out of that, which is...
So they can't use that as an asset to get more loans. They're like, hey, we've got at least $1,000
or they use it,
guy.
Or they loan it, or they loan that value, that $1,000, that physical $1,000 that I gave they loan that to somebody else, just as a normal kind of, here's $1,000, pay me $1,100 back over the year, you're fine, whatever.
How did this company fail so fast? Any idea?
Because it's because they were doing that, and then Sam Bankman-Fried was like directly moving cash from FTX to his Alameda Holdings, which was a separate crazy fucking financial system. And he was buying fucking stadium names and donating millions of dollars to Democratic candidates and sending millions of dollars over to Ukraine. Like, he was spending money hand over fist. And the interesting thing to me about it is, like, the part of the rise and why like you heard about it as this big deal is because he's of the, I can't remember what the exact phrase was, but it's like the radically altruistic business model, which is essentially justifying any means of doing business with the promise that I'm going to do good with the money I make, which is really him saying that I have a better insight on what is good in the world and how to spend money in a good way than you do. So give me your money, invest in the things that I am going to do, and I can justify any means of terrible actions in my business practice because I'm doing that for the greater good, because I'm going to spend the money that I make personally on all these great things, which, in his opinion, is Ukraine and Democrats and baseball or football stadiums. And so that's another kind of wrinkle to the whole thing, is that there's all these different financial things happening, and then it's running under this weird extreme altruism banner.
Oh, there's some kind of weird fact check thing I heard on the FTX funds that were going to this and that. One of those stories was getting blown up. I don't remember the specifics of it.
Well, there's a full-on conspiracy theory that there was some tied-up stuff where, as part of the Sam Bankman-Fried thing, was people that he had donated to that he was kind of pushing to a coalition to push funds to Ukraine so that they could launder FTX money in Ukraine, and then he could donate it to their next campaign. That was one of the conspiracy kind of things that was going on with it. Yeah. Which, the premise is, and I'm sure it's happened, I'm not saying currently, but I'm sure it's happened over the history of time, is you do congressional spending on a thing that gets turned around and donated to your campaign in kind of a cycle. I'm sure that's happened plenty of times in the history of U.S. financing things.
With the right accountant.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's the thing about it is, a lot of what that I think it's margin lending is the technical term for that thing I was trying to explain about how, or fractional lending. Either way, because essentially that's what banks do every day. But we're okay with that. And so it's kind of weird. There's some weirdism to them, because I was thinking, one of my podcasts was talking about it today, and Dave Smith, it's God damn it, now I forgot it. He said Miracle on 34th Street, but it's actually God damn it, it's the Christmas movie, black and white.
Oh, It's a Wonderful Life.
It's a Wonderful Life. Yeah, he referenced it wrong on the show, and so I wanted to call him out on it on my show, like he listens. The premise of It's a Wonderful Life is gets to the end there, and there's the run on the bank. That's the whole issue there. It's the run on the bank. Everybody in town's like, I want my cash because banks are going under and all this kind of crap. I want my cash before you disappear. And so the whole speech that he gives about how your money's not here. Your money's in John's store and in Bill's farm, and it paid for this thing over there, and they're paying us back, and that's how you get your money back and stuff like that, which functionally makes sense. Right. But when you actually take a step a little further into how banks really operate that, is it gets weirder because there's a lot of not real money happening. And so the idea is so I deposit $1,000 in your bank, right? Currently, I think the Fed has a 10% minimum in reserve. So I give you $1,000, you have to have $100 physically in your bank of my 1,000 by rules of the Fed. But you take that 900, you lend it to Max. Now Max does a thing with it, that's one thing. But if Max takes that and turns around and puts it in a bank, theoretically your own bank, which would be weird and stupid, but just even if he puts it in other banks and all, you move all this money around, well, you keep 90 of his and loan out that 810. And so now you have 900 and 810 out in loans, but only $1,000 went in the first place. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so what is that other money? Like where? I mean, so we're now there's $710 extra that appeared in this process. Where does that come from? What does that do? How does that impact things like inflation and stuff like that? And when you do it at scale, which is done every day, all day, throughout the banking system, it's fucking crazy. Because I think there's a period of time where there was a negative number. You could loan out more than you had in reserve. You didn't have to keep any of it. You could actually loan out a multiplier of what you had instead of
what you physically had on hand.
So what you physically have on hand. Tampa score again?
Yeah.
Son of a bitch. 3-1?
3-2.
Oh, they tied it up first. Oh, that's just to hurt your feelings.
I know.
So, yeah. Bacon stuff. It's a way to get the show real boring real fast. I'll tell you what, like there's Robbie the Fire Bernstein, which is Dave Smith's co-host on the Run Your Mouth podcast. That guy is a finance. I don't even know how to start. Like he's not great at it, but like he is super interested in it, and he goes and talks to people that know what the fuck they're talking about and stuff like that on his own show. And so he has a lot of knowledge on it, and he kind of gets it to explain it a little bit easier on how some of these finances and how some of these different, monetary policies actually work and what they actually do. And it's kind of frightening, like if you really get down to it. There's a lot of money created out of thin air, either by the Fed directly or indirectly through Fed policy and what banks are allowed to do. This very basic version of margin lending being one of them. Yeah. Because, literally $700 just appeared in our little quick mini example. Where does it go? What happens when it's gone? I don't get it. It's very confusing to me. Now, I'm sure there's a way to understand it, but I don't. Not yet, at least.
There's many levels of those financial transactions.
And I mean, but the other part, too, that makes that even harder is that because, like, you like, especially like right now we have this inflationary issue. The Fed is raising rates. What does that mean when the Fed raises rates?
The interest rates?
Yeah. What does it mean when the Fed raises the rate?
They're raising the cost of how much it is to borrow from the banks from the reserve.
Right. So when the bank goes to the Fed to borrow money so that they can lend that money out, because the Fed doesn't do it directly. So when you go buy a house for $340,000, whatever the average is here in Knoxville, the mortgage company that's handling it, they don't have that money when they give you that money to buy that house. Which they never actually give you the money. You don't write a check when you buy a house. But theoretically, that mortgage company doesn't have it. They go to the Federal Reserve and say, hey, let me borrow $340,000. And so when you're paying 5%, they're paying 3% from the Fed.
Right.
So what's really confusing to me right now is it's finally got there. There's like 5-year CDs that are now like 3.5%. So if you certificate of deposit, you can actually make money off of saving money now for the first time in a while. Because
I read a story about that. It was like 2 or 3 weeks ago that it actually crashed it was whatever, like the official, government funded where you could buy treasury bills, T-bills.
Yeah.
The rates had actually gone up to like 2 and 3% for
right.
even just a 1-year treasury bill.
Right.
That it was actually profitable. A lot of people joked about treasury bills for the longest time.
Well,
I always
because
remember it from trading places. Was it Jamie Lee Curtis telling Dan Aykroyd, it's got to be, she let him borrow like $5 or $10,000. She's like, pay me back in T-bills.
That's funny.
Yeah.
But because it's like
But I guess the rates were up that high that there were that many people, even people that were in the know that had a shit ton of money. They're like, you can buy a shit ton of treasury bills, and then the next year, I don't even have to wait that long because most treasury bills
are like
15, to get like a decent
10 or 15-year bills, right?
Yeah.
Right, because essentially that's one of the ways that the Fed lowers their balance sheet.
Right.
So when the Fed flat creates money, which they do plenty, but theoretically the Fed has the cash, or they're literally printing the bills to offset what they're loaning out. And one of the ways they do to reduce how much cash they're either creating is to get cash back with T-bills.
Right.
And so when you have a 2% T-bill, instead of like when the Fed sets rates at 5%, I think it's like 4 and some change right now or something like that. When the Fed sets the rate at 4 and some change, they're buying T-bills or they're selling T-bills at 2%. So then if you give the Treasury $10,000 on a 2% return, they then loan that $10,000 out at their set 5%. And that's a way that they can. That's the way that they can loan old money instead of new money. And then when the banks pay it back, they make money back and blah blah blah.
Fun.
But nowhere in this, and the thing is, the problem is nowhere in this does the Fed make money. Banks make all the money. The Fed doesn't. Which, you know, it is a private entity that is
I wonder why
under the direction
they have
of
that reserve in that name.
Do it.
So I wonder if maybe that's why they have the reserve in that.
I mean, I don't think they hold any cash ever.
Right. I mean, their goal is to not make money.
I don't know. I don't know what their goal is, to be honest, because it doesn't. Their goal, well, technically, their goal is to manipulate the markets to help offset boom and bust cycles. That's their goal. That's their stated goal. That's why they're raising rates right now, because that is a functional way that they can try to slow down the economy to keep inflation from continuing to be, or from that 10% to push it back down to the more reasonable 5 or 6.
Right. We don't want to slow down. We still want to order our shit.
I'm just saying that is what the Fed's process is. They grow and shrink the money supply, and they grow and shrink the interest rate to try to manipulate the economy.
Keep the market from being too volatile. I get
Right.
it. Right.
Yeah, lost like 4 trains of thought in that whole mess. Yeah. But at once upon a time, though, it used to be that banks would hold our money and loan that out, but now banks don't do it anymore. Banks very rarely lend depositor cash. They just borrow from the Fed because it's cheaper. That's why all of a sudden now, since rates are so high from the Fed, you actually start seeing CDs.
I mean, they're lending out less of their own customers' money, basically.
Right.
Okay.
They're not giving good rates for savings. Like, I've bitched on this show plenty of times about how annoying it is to have a stockpile of cash, which is a really weird thing to say out loud, but to have some extra cash floating around and have nothing valuable to do with it. Because I want to keep it in cash, or not maybe in cash, but I want to keep it accessible, because it's kind of like, I was built to be kind of a rainy day fund. Make sure if something gets weird or something major happens, we have cash available to keep the business. And
have you not seen the commercials, man? You got to buy those gold coins and silver coins.
That is not liquid enough for what I'm trying to do, because you have to turn around and sell those gold coins, where you put in a CD or something like that, you could take a penalty and still get your cash back.
Maybe.
But I mean, like, there was.
Who you can get your cash back from?
Do what?
Who you can get your cash back from? There's a run on the banks.
Who said they were thinking about a run on the banks?
I mean, I figured you're only cashing it in a dire instance.
I was more of a personal or professional dire instance, gotcha. Not in a world economy gotcha. Dire instance. But yeah, like, the idea was that we had it set over here, like we wanted to keep it set over there and make us less tempted to use it on frivolous shit and keep it in savings. And so it's like, well, hey, if I could get like a 6-month CD or a 1-year CD, I thought it was like a 1-year CD at like 1% or less, like $100,000, you make $1,000 in a year. That sucks. It's cash is not where it's hard to hold. It's hard to save cash. It still kind of is, but it's getting better. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what this, like, I just think the Fed's interaction with it is making it harder for normal people to interact. And basically what the Fed has been doing, and is stopping currently, but what the Fed has been doing is making it unadvantageous to save. It's not, and that's on purpose. That's how you get the economy really blowing up, cool. Is you make it so that there's no value in saving your money, so you go spend it.
All right. Can we go on to something else?
Sure.
Thank you.
You want to talk about abortion? I don't know what you want to talk about.
I'd rather not.
Okay. Well, give me something. Let's go.
Oh, shit. What else was I just reading recently? Oh, I did see that. I believe the House passed the Marriage Equality Act or something like that.
Woohoo.
Senate had already passed it, I think, earlier this week.
Woohoo. I know Burchett voted no on any and all versions of it.
Cool. I did see something about, I think it was that rail strike that they were, I think it was Haggerty had voted against it, but Marcia voted for it.
I don't know.
It was weird because I think both of them kind of flip-flopped in like the initial vote and then the final vote. Like one of them kind of like went both ways on one.
I don't know. I didn't see that one.
I don't know if it was like a reconciliation or something.
I know the totality of the story, but I don't know the specific. Well, there was 2 votes too. There was one that was just straight up, you're taking the shit deal that the bosses put up, and then there was a second one that was, well, you're taking the shit deal plus 1 day of paid time off, or you're taking the shit deal plus 7.
Yeah,
and I know the plus 1 was the one that passed, but the additional 6 days was still in flux or whatever. But yeah, I don't know who voted for what in that, per se. I think it's unfortunate.
I think our last episode mainly just focused on the World Cup and soccer.
We talked a lot about soccer.
We did.
We talked a lot about the sheriff thing again. We talked about the Greyhound bus thing again.
Yeah.
We talked about my KB situations.
Did see it was actually in the national news. There was talk of, I guess Bill Lee was talking about maybe doing toll roads in certain cities.
I did see that pop up.
Try to garner a little bit more money. It made it sound like we had a backlog of road projects to be done.
I mean, we do. I think.
I'm sure there's always a backlog.
Right. To get like any of these conversations, whoever's budget it is, I don't understand it. Like, one, we have the gajillion dollars in the rainy day fund here in the state. Why are we talking about new ways to make money when we haven't spent the money we've taken in?
One was I thought it
in
was
totality
kind of backwards. It was putting a higher tax on electric vehicles, unless they're talking about a tax incentive or whatever. But I think it was actually like you get taxed more for driving an electric car.
Maybe on your plate, on your annual renewal. That would make sense. I mean, that's essentially like...
Why would you charge someone more for driving an electric car, though?
Because they're not paying gas tax, which is what's supposedly is what funds the road work.
Okay.
Well, because Massey was telling me about it when she was here last.
Yeah, because that was Billy's thing. He didn't want to raise any kind of fuel tax or anything like that.
Right. And so, like, Massey is right now working. She has one in her car as for the pilot program. That's essentially the way it looks like is there's going to be 2 options. Is there's either going to be a fixed number annually on your plate renewal, or you will be charged by mile driven.
Mm-hmm.
And if you chose by mile driven, it's a chip that you put in your car that tracks your mileage, and I guess you take that in, or they come out to your car and read it. I don't know exactly, or it uploads continuously. And because I have questions, I have lots of questions. Like,
all you gotta do is unplug it.
That's one. What happens when I leave the state?
Sure.
If let's say, I don't know, I take a long-term gig somewhere else, and I'm in Atlanta for 6 months. I'm driving around Atlanta, living my Atlanta life, whatever that is. But I put, 10,000. I have 15,000 miles on my car the entire year, but 10,000 of them are out of state. Am I paying the state of Tennessee for $15,000 worth of mileage?
All right.
I don't think that's appropriate. I don't think it's appropriate that they. Again, this is the tinfoil hat version. I'm not okay with them knowing where I am. You already know that. And if that chip tells them where I am, I'm not okay with it. If it actually physically tracks you, because that would be the solution. Well, we know you're out of state, so we're not going to charge you while you're driving out of state. We only charge you when you're in state. And the only way we would know that is if we know where you are.
It's kind of shitty, but I know London's done it, and I think Paris has maybe done it, but they've added like an extra tax if you want to drive into basically like the city center.
Right, it's
like
almost
like
a congestion,
toll, basically.
It's like a congestion tax, or
I kind of like the idea of that. I did see another story recently. I don't know where exactly it was kind of referring to, but I know a number of cities kind of had that thing where whenever pandemic was going on and traffic died down, people in cities like fucking loved it. Like, hey, there's no traffic. I can actually like walk down the sidewalk and not have to constantly like make sure like no one's gonna get ready to like run me over. But trying to have more streets and more pedestrian friendly areas.
Right.
When people felt more comfortable to get out and be like walking around near the streets, or go through a crosswalk in a crazy intersection.
To me, what like the conversation we need to have is the complete futurist conversation.
I almost hit somebody after the fucking last Friday the parade down here. Driving by Weigel's. It was some middle-aged, like, older people, like 40, 50-year-olds, like, running across the damn street across Weigel's. Parade was over. I'm sorry, at that point, you need to be looking where the fuck you're going.
I mean, we had tons of cops there as part of it.
I think one of the cops had just left, like right there in front of Roosters.
It's kind of weird because I was like, we were taking our float back from where the parade ends back to here, and I'm riding in the float, but the parade's over, and so there's still people hanging out and whatever because it's immediately after.
Still waving at them.
Still waving at people joking around, but like as we get
candy on the ground, there's some more candy.
As we get down to North Shore, 2 cops were leaving and like following us with their lights on the whole way down North Shore. I was like, I don't know, are they trying to pull us over? But
just looking out.
I love that parade. It's so much fun. But I mean, but again, to go back, I think there's a true what is the future conversation? What is the real future conversation? Like, are we really by 2030 in the state of Tennessee going to have 60 plus miles a gallon required?
No.
That's what they're saying. That's why they're doing this pilot program, and that's why they're 2030. That's why they're trying to figure out how to continue to get revenues to pay for road work. That's why they're having this conversation about how are we going to do it without raising a gas tax. Because it's not fair, and I agree with Lee on this, it's not fair to put extra tax on the gasoline drivers when there's tons of electric drivers that are doing damage to the road as well. You know, but so the reason they're trying to figure out how to make sure they keep that revenue stream strong is because the state of Tennessee is pushing towards higher requirements of miles per gallon for all new cars sold in the state. And when they do that, and the natural use at this point of people moving to electric cars, as they do that, their revenue is going to go down because the gas tax is going to be, there's going to be less gallons of gas sold.
I think we tried to do that nationally for many years. But it's hard to force the car manufacturers to use the technology they've been sitting on for so long.
I mean, I'm curious because like I was talking to the guy at the Toyota dealership about it, and it's just like, because like it drove me crazy. So they have this Prime. So Toyota has their hybrids and then they have their Primes. Their Primes are their plug-in hybrids. So it's an electric car with a gas engine instead of a gas car with an electric engine. So the electric engine's first, basically. And so, you know, for most of my driving, for my daily, I would do that. I could plug in and charge overnight and go out and do my job and probably use no gas throughout the day. But if I had a longer day, went a little further, ran some extra errands or whatever, the gas engine kicks in and does its thing. Toyota Knoxville gets 4 Prime cars a year. They get like 30 hybrids a year, and they get like 500 gasoline vehicles a year at that dealership.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, how's Toyota going to do this when Tennessee goes to the CAFE standard? Apparently that's the slang term. And he's like, they're not even going to try. They're just going to figure out how to pay the fines and where to squeeze and do whatever, but nothing's going to change. That was this is just some salesman at a dealership.
So I would think maybe if they said like 2050, I'd be like, okay, I could see that being possible. But less than 10 years from now?
I mean, even 2050.
There's no.
I mean, I get what you're saying about the possibility of it, but still, whether it's 30, 40, or 50, the idea is the push is in that direction.
And what you're talking about is less than 10 years away, 2030, right?
Okay. But I'm saying even going back to the core question that we're talking about here is walkable cities, less gas. How do we keep the roads functional? All those little combinations. To me, it's the futurist conversation. Forget about whether it's 30, 40, or 50. What is life going to be 50 years from now, period? Are we going to be driving around like we drive around? Is everything going to be Ubered and everything's home delivered and we just live in our VR systems or whatever? Because depending on how you see the future would be how you should be designing how we're going to deal with said future.
Sure.
Because, I don't know, maybe we could come out with a fucking hover car and not have to worry about roads. Just have lines painted or reflectors on a field.
We've got versions. They're just not very functional.
Right. I'm just saying, the consensus seems to be the electric car is. And if that is the case, okay. Then that's how we need to restructure what we're doing. We need to structure it towards what the future is going to be. And if we agree that the electric car is it, okay, then we move that way.
That's kind of our best guess at the moment. There was a big push for hydrogen for a while, but hydrogen itself, it can be kind of volatile.
Either way, non-combustible, not gas. But
they're running into the same thing that electric is that extended infrastructure of charging stations be able to charge, or hydrogen stations being able to refill up your hydrogen car.
Right, but with the hydrogen, at least, there is a fill-up process. But, I mean, I guess it should be the same thing, though. Then you do it that way.
It'd be faster.
I mean, I guess...
But then you're still dealing with, like, high-pressure hoses, which not conducive to it'd have to be full service, basically.
Yeah, which wouldn't be the worst thing either. But I guess the other way you could do with the electric stuff is that you have, when, just like every gas pump you see has got a sticker on it from the state of Tennessee that says it's verified to be correct in its volume and that it is paying the taxes appropriate. Like, there's a meter on there, those things that the state comes out and reads periodically, and that's how they tax. That's how they get their tax money from the gas station that they collect from us. So put the same thing on electric. So when you go to a Tesla charging station, when you swipe your card and charge up for a half hour, that totals out to 300 miles, do a surcharge for the equivalent of 300 miles in gas tax.
I can't remember if it was Tesla specific, but I think they have started to come out with some charging stations that are a little bit more rapid charging, where most of the stations, you pretty much had to charge it for at least 3 or 4 hours to get you another 20, 30 miles.
Yeah, they're supposed to be like half hour, get you another 200 miles or something like that now.
Yeah, I think they are like fast.
But you see my point, though. My point, though, is essentially that charging interaction is the same interaction as a pump. So a certain number of minutes on the charger is equal to a certain number of miles of driving.
Right.
A certain number of minutes on the pump, a certain amount of gallons on the pump, is equivalent to a general number of miles driven. And if the way to tax is by miles driven, then you say, okay, well, there's a 45 cent per 100-mile surcharge on your fill-up. And then you make... The only problem is home charging. I don't know how you would solve that part of it. You would have to
figure
make...
out how to charge people for charging their car at their home?
Yeah.
I think the power company does that.
But how to actually subdivide what is people charging their car versus their regular household electric use?
For what purpose? So
that they can... The electric version of the gas tax.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So, like, if you're doing it a public one, then it's on there, it's public, and, as part of the business model, the state has access to how many hours of drive time they've produced for people. You just have to figure out a way to do it at home.
Charging Target and Cracker Barrel for having charging stations in lieu of gas tax?
Currently, I don't think so. But, yeah.
You're thinking there should be a way to do that.
Why not? It's the same thing. For all intents and purposes, in lieu of, whatever. For all intents and purposes, a Tesla charging station, the thing,
right,
is an analog, or it's a digital version of a gas pump.
I thought you were anti-tax. You're trying to find ways to supplement this gas tax.
Okay.
I'm just trying to figure it out.
You're right. Fuck it. No taxes. Good.
You're so crazy.
You're so crazy. Like, I get, like, this is a frustration. This is my fault for this. I deserve that for identifying as a libertarian for as long as I did.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying in general, you've been kind of like anti-tax.
I mean, honestly, I still kind of am, but it's like, this is the reality of what we're doing, so let's find a reasonable and fair way to do it, which is what I'm trying to find. Then we've had this conversation 1,000 times. Tell me about state services.
Well, I think that's one thing that Lee was talking about, adding an extra tax, I guess, to owning an electric vehicle.
Right, as a way to offset the fact that they're not going to collect gas tax. That's the point. But, it doesn't make sense. It makes sense to me in fairness. I agree with it in fairness. We need to figure out a way that those people who are buying electric cars and saving the planet, even though it destroys the planet as much, if not more, than a gas car does, blah, 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 that they pay their fair share of taxes to pay for the roads that they're driving on.
I guess I'd be curious to look and see what TDOT, as the main road repair company, how much of their funding actually comes from tax subsidy, basically.
It's supposed to be the majority of their funding comes out of the gas tax directly. That's supposed to be how it's set up.
Right.
But who knows how accurate that is. But again, like, okay, so let's go back to the big royal question we've asked 1,000 times. But let's just do it on a state level. We don't have to do it on the federal level. Let's do it on the state level instead of the federal.
What's the purpose of them?
Tell me a service that the state of Tennessee provides.
I'm not doing this. Sorry.
That's what I mean. Why? Because you don't have a good answer. Not because there aren't good answers. Because you don't know them, and it's not because you're a bad person or there's anything wrong with you. It's you don't know them because it's too big. It's too ridiculous. There's too much shit going on.
It's because you're doing it as a gotcha question, and I'm not doing this right now.
How am I doing it as a gotcha question?
Because of what you literally just stated is exactly why it is a gotcha question.
What did I just say already?
You just said you're asking me not because you don't know, or you're trying to ask me because you know that I don't know because I don't know a good reason for it. So you were trying to do a gotcha question.
Okay, well,
knowing
fine.
full well
Okay,
that you're asking me a question that I don't have a good answer for. See, but you still want to insist on me trying to give you an answer.
Okay, that's fine. So even in your refusal to answer, it proves the point. It proves the point is that the state collects billions of dollars a year, and we don't know what they do with it. But then when there's a conversation, and I just fell victim to it in that whole conversation about this fucking electric car tax thing we just talked about. Yeah. I just did it. The guy who hates taxes. We don't know what they spend the money on that they get already. We don't know how well or efficiently, at least those in the education departments think they don't spend enough of it anywhere. But we don't know the answer to that question. We don't know what they do, what they're responsible for doing, and if they're spending their money wisely. We don't know the answer to that question. But yet it's really easy to have a comfortable conversation about how we should tax. What new tax should we do to make up for the lost tax over here, this, that, the other. Yeah. That in and of itself is the problem to me. Because it's like, well, wait a minute. We haven't spent the totality of funds collected by the state for like 5 or 6 years straight now. We keep throwing this extra money that we didn't have in the budget into this rainy day thing, and it keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and a pandemic comes, and that's not enough for call it a fucking rainy day, so we just keep loading more into it. Not to mention we did good enough sales and stuff that we really didn't lose revenue over the time period and stuff like that, but either way. We keep collecting money. The state of Tennessee keeps collecting money and not spending it, yet they're hard-pressed to figure out a way to collect more money. Does that not just in and of itself not add up to you, or is it just me?
From the outside, yes, but at the same time, I'm willing to admit that even within just the state budget, it is such a ginormous. We've talked about just Knox County's education budget alone.
Right, it's confusing.
It's ginormous.
$600 million, and it's just
there's so much involved into where that money is going, how it's spent.
I'm not disagreeing with that, but just on the grand scheme of things, like love or hate Tennessee and their conservative nature or whatever, you have a federal government who hasn't exceeded budget, regardless of what the income from the IRS was that year or not, hasn't exceeded their own planned budget. They've exceeded, like, what, since Clinton was the last time we had a budget surplus?
That's what I've heard people say. I don't know how they justify what's a deficit.
I'm just saying the federal government had
everyone talked about Clinton having a surplus during some of his years,
which is it's a good thing, but like essentially the way the terminology at work is the body convenes, whether it's the state or federal or local legislature convenes and sets a budget. Knox County's budget is July to July. That's our fiscal year. So they do all the lead up, they do all the work over the summer. We have all the conversations about budget. So July, we set this budget. It goes into place. So for fiscal year 23-24, which will be the next fiscal year for the county, it is a $1 billion budget. It's not going to be that much, but whatever. It's a $1 billion budget. Now, it doesn't know how much money it's going to make in that time period. Its whole premise is we're going to, on all the different departments and all the different activities, we're going to spend $1 billion. That's what the budget is. When you have a surplus, like Mr. Clinton did, is when you set a budget for $1 billion, but you only spend $900 million. So you have a $100 million surplus. It doesn't mean you saved $100 million against what you earned.
What we initially,
you didn't spend what you spent less than you were planning on spending in the time period. So you could, and I don't know the truth on the Bill Clinton part of it or not, but you could theoretically say, Knox County, we're going to have $1 billion budget and only collect $900 million in taxes in that time period, and only spend $900 million, and pat yourself on the back and say, hey, we had a budget surplus.
Yeah.
Well, you also have $0 left over because you didn't collect the $1 billion you thought you would. So anyway, back to the point. State of Tennessee, in its fiscal conservativeness, has been really good about having budget surpluses. Now, similar to what we were talking about the Fed earlier, the state of Tennessee's job is not to make money. They're not to save money and make money and hold money. That's not the job of the state of Tennessee. The job of the state of Tennessee is to collect that money and spend it on the services that they promise to provide through their Constitution. Now, the idea of saying, hey, let's save a little bit just in case, cool. I'm not opposed to that premise. They need to have a fixed number as a percentage of their total budget or something like that on how much if the rainy day fund cannot exceed X as a percentage of a budget. Because sitting there and running, which a ton of candidates do over and over again, running on how great we are on our budgets that we keep growing this rainy day fund is bullshit. Because all that means is they're not spending the money they're collecting. Stop fucking collecting the money if that's what you want to do. Lower the taxes. If you're not going to spend the money anyway, lower the taxes. Quit throwing it in some fund. Let me keep it. Or something different. I'm just saying, that would be my premise on it. If you're not going to spend the money that you take in taxes, don't take it. That seems reasonable to me. Not even in a psycho-libertarian way, just like in a normal human being sort of way.
Yeah, a lot of places do that.
What places?
As far as anything from schools to businesses or anything that has a budget, a yearly budget, is they never want their budget to be decreased. So, I mean, they'll either
that microphone is still right there.
I know, but maybe I should start angling it differently. So it's
the big red dynamite.
I got some room to. It's
I'm getting Sam animated is really what's happening. He's getting animated and he's moving his hands around.
I just remember I can't move my hands around anywhere close to it, or else I ended up hitting it. Anyway, I mean, I've seen it, with some of UT's budgets or whatever. They want to spend their money every year,
which is
they don't want to I would think it would look good upon them. It would behoove them to not spend their money. Behoove them. I'm
going with it. I don't give a shit. It's my phrase.
I would think he would look good as the finance officer for that department or whatever. They're like, hey, we spent $1 million last year. I was able to do everything we did for $500,000.
Right.
But the people above them were like,
cool.
That's cool.
You only get $500,000 next year.
Yeah, your budget next year is $500,000.
Right, because I think
you're like, well, wait, I was just able to.
Right, I think the logical.
And I mean, it kind of makes sense both ways.
But the logical good management,
if you can function without it, you don't need it.
Right, but the logical good management would be, this guy in this department knows how to manage his money. When he asks me for more, I'm going to give him more. When he asks me, because he's going to be honest with me and not hold on to it just to make sure he spends it. Because that's a separate thing, and I don't disagree with you on that. But that's not what's happening here either. I mean, on the grand scheme of things, this would be like the University of Tennessee as a whole, not each individual department.
But I mean, as far as the government, the different state government departments coming to their budget mediation or whatever every year, like, hey, we need this much. This is our budget proposal. Right.
Okay, I'm not even talking about that. That's what I'm saying. I'm talking about the entirety of the budget after they all come in there and whether they bullshit their budget.
I think that's part of why the budget is so large, just because every year that they haven't really given it a chance to be able to shrink it all, because everyone's like, well, I don't want my budget to go down. We're always going to say, like, hey, it's going to cost us this much. It's going to cost us this much.
What is that thing that I say all the time?
They're not encouraged to say, hey, I think I can figure out a way to call it a little bit less.
Right. It's all incentives games. Everything's about incentive. If you're a department head, your incentive is to keep your budget or grow your budget. You don't want a smaller budget next year. It's in your best interest as that department head to make sure you at least keep the same budget, if not grow your budget for future. So you figure out ways to justify that, whether you really need it or not.
But
doesn't matter.
In the levels above that, does that not kind of artificially keep your cost of operations, your operating costs, artificially high? Okay,
sure, because it's a problem with incentives, and this is the old school way that we've always incentivized the system. And honestly, it's not an intentional incentive. It's but again, with government stuff,
playing within the system of that.
Well, with government stuff, I don't know if you could get away with it, because I think if you wanted to put an incentive in place to really hammer it, you'd say, hey, department head, we'll give you 1%, 0.5%, 0.1% of every dollar under budget you are as a bonus. We don't give you the entirety. So if you say it's $1 billion, if I need $1 billion for my budget, and I only spend $900 million, then it's $100 million. I get 1%. I get $1 million bonus because I was more efficient with my money.
I was going to say 100,000. But yeah, you're right.
But I mean, that would be a good incentive, and it would save the state $900 million or $99 million, excuse me.
Right.
Something like that. But again, that can be a perverse incentive in and of itself, because then you don't do the job, you cut corners and shit like that to stay under budget to get the bonus. It's a hard game. I mean, it always is a hard game, and no matter what it is, it's a hard game to get to build the right incentive structure to get the results you want. Because what you want is Department of TDOT. You want them to have good, functional roads in place. That's what you want them to do. You want them to go out and build and maintain the roads and keep them nice. That's the goal. Now, how do you incentivize that end? And that's always the question, whether it's public, like we're talking about, or privately, like in a regular, normal day-to-day business. Because, I mean, I have issues with my day job. The way they incentivize different parts of the team is antithetical to other parts of the team. And so they accidentally build friction between people that are supposed to be on teams together.
Right. Because
that guy's incentive is anything he can to sell more cases. Well, I don't get any more money or less money by case numbers. My incentive is not more cases. That's not how they've been structured my incentive program.
Right.
And so when that guy sells more cases because he's incentivized to do that, I'm pissed off because I'm doing more work.
Right.
It's not really a good incentive structure in place for all parties.
Not for all parties, but for, I guess,
for one part. Well,
for 2 out of 3 of that.
Well, yeah. Well, 3 out of 4 if you want to break it down. But still, they could incentivize me by case count. They could put that in there. They could figure out a way to do it. Like, for every case sold, he gets 50 cents, I get a dime. Okay. I'm going to be less upset when I have 10 more cases to do because I just made an extra $1, $2, whatever it is. They could do it. It's doable. It's just it's the old school sales model that it doesn't matter as long as we sell more. So it goes into the same thing. But again, we're talking about department size specifics. I'm talking about the Tennessee government as a whole.
Right.
It's collecting more money year in and year out than it is spending. So either needs to spend the money or stop taking it. And so, yes, I think it is fair to have a conversation about making sure electric car drivers pay an equivalent tax to what gas car drivers pay to make sure that we keep our roads. I think that is a fair and correct way to do it.
Yeah, I think that's fair if it came to that point, but I don't think Tennessee's at that point. That
it's already unfair. I see Teslas every day. How many Teslas do you see when you're driving around during the day?
A handful.
Okay, those people.
But comparatively, what percentage would you say of
it doesn't
electric
matter.
Cars? It does matter because it's exactly what we're talking about.
No, it doesn't matter because I'm talking about fairness. I'm not talking about getting roads fixed. I'm talking about fairness.
Okay.
I have gas cars. That guy has an electric car.
Right.
He is paying less taxes to drive on the same roads I am because he has an electric car. That is not fair to me. It doesn't matter if there's only 5 electric cars of the 50,000 in town. Those 5 people aren't being taxed for their ability to drive on the roads the same way I am. And that is not fair. That's the point I'm getting to the whole time. It's a fairness conversation. That's the only reason I'm okay with talking about making sure we figure out a way to tax them correctly. It's an equality issue. Is that a better way to say it? They should be taxed equally for their use of the roads as me. But they're not, because they drive electric cars. And the state of Tennessee uses gas tax to pay for road repair.
And I'm saying at this point, the percentage of electric vehicles out there are not enough to throw a hissy fit about of having to add this extra tax to it.
Okay, so should my neighbor be able to shoot his wife in the face and not have not call it a crime?
You're comparing apples to apples, obviously, in this situation.
Okay, should my neighbor... I don't know. Should my neighbor just not pay property tax for no fucking reason at all? His house is black and mine is white.
Your neighbor drives a scooter that gets 100 miles to the gallon. Is it fair that he's paying less in taxes?
Does his scooter do equivalent damage to my Tahoe? No. It's fair that my vehicle that takes more, that is significantly larger and heavier, and takes more gasoline to operate, does more damage to the road in equivalent mileage.
Okay. So your neighbor should be paying the same taxes because you have a heavier car than he has?
They're not paying more taxes.
Okay, they drive a 2-door Mazda Miata that weighs a quarter of the amount of your vehicle,
and they
get
also
better gas mileage.
Right.
So they're paying less in taxes
because they get better gas mileage. Okay. Because their car weighs a half or a third or a quarter of what my car weighs and does less damage accordingly.
All right, so these gas electric vehicles, do they only pay like half, or They need to have a chip to figure out how long they've been running on
No, I
electric
think
versus
that's
how long they've been running on gas.
I think that's where the confusion starts. I think hybrids are a hybrid of the conversation that we've already had. Yes, absolutely. I think yes. If my neighbor has a hybrid, that they're not paying equivalent taxes for the mileages that the amount of damage they do on the road compared to me, they're not paying equivalent taxes for it.
Okay. So let's just say they choose to just drive less than you do. Is it?
Then they're paying less taxes.
Okay.
It's a usage
So they
tax.
should have to pay more taxes because they're driving less than I am.
No, it's a usage tax. They're driving less, they pay less. They use the roads less, meaning they do less damage, they pay less.
So how do you know?
Because you're paying by the fucking gallon. That is what a gas tax is. You pay by the gallon.
Right.
They use it less, meaning they drive less miles.
Right. They use it less, they're paying less.
Yes.
They're not paying as much as I am.
They're not. What do you think gas tax is?
I understand what the fuck.
No, you fucking don't.
Oh, is it not a percentage of gallons per gas that is paid?
So somebody driving less, period, is going to use less gas because they're not filling up as often because they're not driving as much.
Right.
So they're paying less in taxes because they're using the roads
You're getting
less.
mad at your neighbors paying less in gas than you are.
I'm not getting mad at them paying less in gas. I'm getting mad at them paying less taxes.
Where do you think the gas tax comes from? Some people buying gas. Do you not understand this?
I don't understand you. No, I don't. Because they're buying less gas
Right.
because they're using it less. Then I'm not mad at them for using it less. I'm talking about the people that are using it as much as I am and not paying tax, i.e. the electric car drivers.
Okay.
They're not paying to use the service that I am paying to use, and that is not fair. And that is what I'm complaining about from the beginning of this conversation.
Can I get an even lower tax if I buy an electric motorcycle, an electric scooter?
Yes, you should be able to get it less.
Sweet.
I think that would be fair. I'm pretty sure your plate tax is less on a motorcycle than it is a car.
I think you're right. And insurance.
Your wheel tax, you have less wheels.
Yeah, I got 2 less wheels. It should be half. It should be cut in half.
I don't understand what you're not understanding about my argument. Are you arguing with me just to argue? Because I'm really confused right now.
To a small extent. But I still don't get your version of why. I guess I don't understand why you're getting your panties in a wad over this.
I don't because it's.
I mean, as
again,
like I
I'm
said,
fucking
as it
crazy.
started out, I mean, it seems like you're picking a very small, minute, possible way. It seems like it's more of an ethical issue as far as they're paying less taxes. It's
Part
not
of it's an
necessarily
ethical,
a
part of it's the
monetary
reality,
version
though.
of it.
The reality is that is what Governor Lee is talking about. That's why he brought it up as a thing. That's why Massey came in here talking about how she's on the pilot program for this chip thing. This is what the state is looking into doing because they feel like it's going to take over a larger percentage. I get what you're saying, that there's only maybe 1% of Knoxville drivers drive an electric car. So of the millions and millions of dollars in gas tax collected, it should be enough to continue to maintain our roads.
Right.
I agree with you on that. I never disagree with you that even when I was flipping my lid on it. Because I kept saying fairness. This isn't about getting the fucking work done. Because we can assume that even when they figure out how to charge people by the mile or whatever other version they do to get money out of electric car drivers, they're not going to use the money well there either. We're still going to have fucking potholes everywhere and all the bullshit that goes on anyway. That's not the point. The point always was fairness. I kept using the word fairness, which is a weird fucking word to use anyway. Life ain't fair, blah, 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 blah. But fairness is what I was been pitching a fit about.
That was kind of weird. It was coming out of your mouth, too.
But if there's one thing that's supposed to be fair, it should be government. Government interaction with your life should be the fair one. I would think that's the idea. They're supposed to be there for us. And that would be the fair way to treat us as far as, because again, you're talking about toll roads. That's a fair way to tax when you get down to it. It's an inefficient, pain in the ass way to tax.
Yeah, that was just one of the proposals.
I know, but I'm just saying it's a fair way to tax because
I was not promoting it nor
right, but
against it.
The reason toll roads are a fair tax is because you're paying to use it.
Right.
You have to pay to get on it. You pay when you get off it. However, the fucking toll road's set up, but you pay to use it.
Right.
Which would, we go back a couple weeks in conversation. That would be the privatized version of it. You just have toll roads everywhere.
Yeah.
And so that's
logistically impossible. But
no, not really.
Yeah, it would.
Not any different. Good. Fuck it. I'm not going down that road hole again.
Sweet.
What else is there? Oh, yeah. Fucking Canadians killing themselves.
Oh, yeah. You wanted to talk about it.
I do want to talk about this.
Yeah.
I'm excited for Canadians. Good for you, Canada. Your medical system is officially better than ours.
You're just not coming to this conclusion?
No, because it still fucking sucks. But whatever.
No, it doesn't.
I don't know.
Yeah, because they're flooding over the border to come to our healthcare system.
Michael J. Fox is getting all his fucking work here.
Cool.
He's a Canadian citizen.
You just sold me on it.
I'm just saying. Like,
Never mind.
I find it odd.
Yeah, Michael J. Fox is doing it.
I find it odd that
sold.
Canadian a number of Canadian celebrities come to the States to get their medical treatment done. I find it interesting. It's because
you find specialist high doctors. And they're in the U.S. Why? Because they can make a hell of a lot more money than getting paid by the state in Canada.
And they're Canadian, so they're so nice they don't want to take out of the good system that they have back home.
No.
Making fun of it's just the Canadians are nice joke. That was good. I thought that was good. Anyway,
valiant attempt, sir.
Canada is adding MAID service, medically assisted. I can't remember how it's spelled. They called it MAID.
Yeah.
It was medically assisted death something. Basically, Dr. Kevorkian action.
Right.
Which I'm good with. I'm as a libertarian-ish person, because I'm not going to call myself libertarian anymore. As a person who leans libertarian or whatever you want to call it, I'm
libertarian-ish.
I believe in the right to die. I believe you have that right. If you choose, if you choose, you can go through the process, and you should be able to get it done as easily as anything else, and as comfortably as anything else. Like, you shouldn't have to do it the hard way, like blowing your fucking own brain out with a gun, or swallowing a bunch of pills to kill yourself. If you want to die, you should be able to go to the doctor and be like, hey, man, I think I'm done with this thing. I'm not saying it should be that simple. There should be a little bit of a waiting period or something like that.
Like, okay, well, here, sign this form. Go sit in that chair. We'll be with you in a minute.
Yep. And then they go and they shoot you up with some shit, and then the guy with the black bag comes in, drags you out, throws you in the dumpster. Call it a day.
All right, buddy. Are you dead yet? Hurry up and die already. I ain't got all day.
And so there's an article from the CBC or something like that came out that was basically discussing the potential financial advantages of people taking that option.
In certain cases, there are. I mean, if you're on like long-term hospice care, long-term chemo care,
absolutely. When it gets down to the brass tacks of it, it is because especially, I think they said that I think they said they were using data from like the Netherlands or somewhere else that's already doing it or something like that. And like of the people that use the service, like 98.5% were over 40, or like 80, or like 80% were over 60, 99% were over 40.
Yeah.
And then like 75% were estimated with less than a year to live when they went through the process and shit like that. And so it's like, long-term treatments and stuff like that get real expensive. All that kind of stuff. And so again, like, I think it's a good thing. I think it should be a normalized thing. I think it should be a stateside thing. I think it's something we should be able to do here. It's kind of ridiculous that you can't.
I'm for it with restrictions. Yeah.
What kind of restrictions?
I mean, I don't think it should just be willy-nilly, like you said, just be able to like walk into a clinic. I mean, if you are in a certain case to where you have a terminal disease and all your doctors have agreed that, hey, there is literally no outcome for you, and towards the very end of it, you will not be the person that you are.
Right, like you're going into long-term. What's the one where you lose your memory? Dementia,
Alzheimer's. Dementia and Alzheimer's. Yeah, dementia, basically. Yeah.
See, I don't know. I mean,
basically,
I will agree with your original statement, but I disagree with some of your limits. I don't think it needs to be medically required. I think there should be a mental health check. Make sure you're not just fucking bad shit crazy and just like, I want to die. But I don't think you should be required to have some medical. It shouldn't be. You shouldn't have to go through some like medical necessity part of it. I just don't want to do this anymore. I
mean, definitely some kind of good screening process.
I was saying I disagree with it needing to have a medical issue to go with it. Like, I don't need to have a cancer diagnosis. If I'm just like, I'm done. I'm done. I go talk to the psychologist, psychiatrist, whatever mental doctor you want. And it's like, okay, I mean, he's not crazy.
Right.
Maybe a waiting period. You got to wait at least a couple weeks. You just had a bad couple days and came in. Maybe make sure it wasn't just like a bout of depression or you had a bad couple days and
Right.
whatever. But past that, I don't think it's this. I don't think it needs to be you have cancer, you have dementia or Alzheimer's or something like that. It has to be a part of it. I think if you legitimately, in a clear and lucid way, can explain why you want to do it, I think that should be enough. I'm not encouraging it. I wish people. I don't wish people to use said service when there's nothing wrong with them and they just don't want to do this anymore. That's a bummer in the big picture. And
Right.
That's a reflection of how shitty our world has become. That like a perfectly healthy 30-year-old is like, fuck it, I quit.
And I guess that's kind of like one of my worries with it is it does kind of open that door for those people that may have been on the fence about it, and they're like, oh, well, now I don't really have to have a reason for it anymore. Like,
But do you think anybody that kills themselves?
I don't think it would be like a lemur type thing where everybody's just like, oh, let's just jump over the cliff. Oh, everybody just, oh, well, he's jumping over the cliff. Let's jump over the cliff too.
I mean, I certainly don't think a minor should be able to do it without permission.
It's a possibility.
Oh, that'd be an interesting one. Yeah, I don't think a minor should be able to do it. And I think if a minor was to request it and a parent was to accept it, then that parent should go to jail. That's a little bit weird, but that's a super autistic on it. Or whatever. And so anyway, I'm going back and forth with Mr. Alistair from the Angry Atheist podcast on this because he shared the story from the CBC, and it was basically like the caption that he'd put on it, that Alistair had put on it was, like, this is the problem with capitalism or some shit like that. It's like, there's problems with capitalism, don't get me wrong. But I don't know how anywhere in this article, did you read the article? Because I shared it?
No, I meant to look at it earlier, sorry.
Like, there's no, the financial conversation they're having is legitimately the one we just had. It's like, you got, stage 4 cancer, chemo, medical, hospice care, all this stuff is a lot of money. And while there is cost associated with having the doctor come out and having the team and the drugs that they use or whatever it is that they do to put you down, for lack of a better word, right. There is a cost involved with that. But, using the information from the Netherlands and elsewhere that allows services like this, it seems pretty clear that, most people that use the service are going to die pretty soon from their disease anyway. And even though they only have 4 months, a year to live when they go through it, the cost estimated if they would have waited out that year versus if they did it now, seems to be significantly less. That's the whole point of this article. And especially in a system like Canada, I would think that would be in the public good, not just in the individual's healthcare good, right, to give them that option. Because now it's a public money good because it's a single payer system there, right?
Yeah, for the most part. So
if it's, again, that which in and of itself is specifically not capitalist, to have a single payer system for any subset of the economy, in and of itself is not capitalist. The article is just legitimately discussing the costs versus the cost of doing medically assisted death versus the cost of people living out the end of their days suffering through cancer or whatever. That's all the article's talking about. And it's like, where do you come? I don't mean to be that guy here, but where do you come up with this as a problem of capitalism? To which Alistair comes back to me. It's like, well, there are some people that are using it because it's too expensive to find housing in Canada. It's like, what? I was like, I need a little bit more on that part of the story. So Alistair shares the story of some lady who lives in Canada and has some very specific crazy fucking allergy to everything and can't find affordable housing. And so she wants to kill herself, and she's been approved apparently in the process that they are starting to use in Canada, which I think is kind of weird. But, it's like, well, that's not really, again, that doesn't really make sense to the capitalism argument where it's going wrong. Because it's not affordable housing that's the problem for this lady. It's affordable housing that she can live in. Because she is not a normal person. I don't mean that in a derogatory way.
Right.
But she's literally
an abnormal allergy.
Right. She literally has a severe allergy to chemical smells. So she needs a place to live that doesn't have chemicals in the walls when they built the place. Right. Wasn't cleaned recently with chemicals. Doesn't have neighbors that are nearby that use chemicals in their shampoos or body soaps or clean their own dishes or whatever with a chemical-based detergent. There's a very specific subset of needs that this person has. Now, a good system Canada, U.S., whatever, should probably be able to figure out a way to do something for this lady in lieu of her killing herself just because she can't find a place to live. That sucks. But nowhere in this is a capitalist conversation. The cost of housing in Canada is not a capitalist issue, especially for this particular story.
Yeah, I saw something on, I think it was like some kind of car YouTube channel that's based out of Canada. They were talking about, I guess he used to live in Toronto, moved out to the suburbs of Toronto, and he's like, man, Americans, talk about how high housing costs are in like San Francisco and stuff. He's like, Toronto's still like the most expensive city like in North America.
Well, somebody's paying for that health care.
Yeah.
It goes into that cost of living somewhere.
I mean,
I don't know exactly how Canada does their taxing to pay for their healthcare system.
I mean, at this point, any major city is highly expensive to live in.
I agree, but I'm just saying.
I think Toronto's probably their most populous city.
Right, but then you add on top of just a general, a New York City, you add on top of that some sort of tax structure that is paying for this healthcare system, and whether it is an income tax, so it's less take-home money. And so, by comparison of what you're taking home,
that's just the Canadian system, because you can go to a smaller, medium-sized town and you get the same issue. It has nothing to do with the single-payer tax care system that is causing their housing costs to go up.
Okay, I don't know.
It sounds like you're saying that the single-payer healthcare system is a major factor on.
No, I'm saying it is a
housing.
factor. I'm saying all things being equal, if Toronto and New York were exactly the same functionally, except for the taxpayer or the single-payer taxpayer system, either the worker that lives in Toronto or New York is going to make less money in Toronto because they're going to have more taxed in income tax, or they're going to be paying more taxes somewhere else, whether it's a property tax or a sales tax or whatever way. I don't know how Canada takes money in to pay for it, but it comes out somewhere. So if everything else were equal, which it's not, but if everything else were equal, the Canadian in Toronto is going to have a more expensive cost of living than the American in New York.
Possibly.
Somewhere in there. Now, maybe the American in New York is making equivalently less income because the insurance provided takes out of their salaries and this, that, and the other. I mean, it's in there somewhere, I guess, if that person has insurance too. But comparatively, I don't know. I mean, I didn't tell you about this story. I 100% agree the U.S. medical system is fucked. This whole thing is fucked. We've talked about it before. We've talked 1,000 times about having a show, and every time our medical expert is here, we end up talking about other stuff. And that's like I joked when I was like, hey, if Max AC, if you want to come to the show, I have some medical stuff I want to talk about. So I'd really like you to be here, AC. Is my trip to the Minute Clinic or whatever it was. It's the AFC, the one right over there in the corner across from the shop. All right, so little man had strep, got it from school. He was out of school for a couple of days, took him to the doctor, they did the whole thing. He had strep. I don't know if we did a podcast together or it was one of the solo shows I did, or maybe it was the one I did with the missus, but I got drunk. Didn't really mean to, but I got real drunk that night. And I woke up the next day feeling crappy. Pretty hungover. But kid was home all day, helped him out, went to work, did all that kind of stuff. The next day, I'm still feeling crappy. I'm like, oh, that wasn't just a hangover. I got strep from dude. So, go down to the clinic, walk to the receptionist, say, hey, I've got strep throat. I need whatever. She's like, okay, here, fill this out, sit down. Pay me $100. Okay, pay her $100. Have a seat. We'll call you back when we're ready. Blah, blah, blah. Call me back. Nurse gets the little thing on my finger, gets my O2 levels, gets the blood pressure cuff on, does that whole thing. Takes my weight, does that whole fucking mess. She's like, what's going on? It's like, oh, I've got strep throat. She's like, how do you know? And I was like, well, my dude had strep throat last week, blah, 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 blah. I told her the whole story. She's like, okay. The nurse practitioner or the doctor or whatever the person who actually can diagnose and shit will be in a minute. It's like, okay, cool. So I'm sitting there, wait a couple more minutes. Lady comes in. She's like, what's going on? It's like, I got strep. She's like, you sure? It's like, pretty sure. Here's why. She's like, okay. And she calls the nurse in. She shoves a fucking swab down my throat, does that whole thing, sticks it in the tube. Right. She's like, okay, just give us a couple minutes. We'll run the test and we'll see what happens. Sit there for a couple minutes, run the test, come back. Yeah, you got strep. I know. Here's a script for whatever. It's like, cool. Run it over to the Walgreens across the street. Get my script, go home.
Yeah.
Get a bill in the mail. I was like, I paid $100 already. What's going on here? So I get a bill and explains whatever. The bill was $450. My insurance picked up like 120 of it. I paid 100 already. I still owe $200, whatever is left over. Why is that a $450 experience that I just had? With insurance. Decent insurance, for that matter.
Yeah.
Why is that a $450 experience?
What was the breakdown? What was the?
I had strep throat, and they gave me a prescription.
So they should just take your word for it?
I mean,
somebody walks in off the street, they're like, "Hey."
I mean, if you want to go like full autistic for my end, sure. I should be able to go to Walgreens and pick up a strep throat test because I think I have strep throat. Test myself on it, and if you,
don't think that's a thing.
I know they don't have it.
Okay.
I'm saying if I could play the should game of what I think should be able to happen,
right.
I should be able to go somewhere and pick up a strep test. No different than the one that my doctor's office has, where they shove the fucking thing down my throat, put it in the tube, shake it up, it changes whatever color. Yeah, he's got strep.
Okay.
I should be able to do that. Take my little tube that changed the color and go to the pharmacist.
Right.
I'll even
that's
grant,
not a thing. Let's go past that.
I'll even grant the idea that I should have a pharmacist control the substances that I should be able to get access to.
I'm glad that you agree with that.
I don't agree with that. I'm just saying I'll even grant that part of the premise.
Yeah, I should be able to just.
Yes, I should be able to go get fucking hydros all I want if I can pay for them. Yes, I should be able to do that, just like they do in Mexico. Anyway, not the point. Yes, the real world version of it, I know I have strep. I can go through the process of confirming that or not.
You know.
I can go through the process of confirming that
you had it.
with testing or not. If I want to go and get moxicillin or some version of it because I know I have a psyllin allergy, if I want to go to the pharmacist who would be the professional drug dealer and be like, hey, I need an antibiotic that's not a psyllin-based one because I have an allergic reaction to it.
Okay. This
is my height and weight and all the different specific things that you need for making sure that you give me the right dosage. Hook me up. I don't see why I can't do that.
Has your wife explained this to you?
Why I can't legally do it, or why I can't morally do it?
We shouldn't do it.
No, she has. I'm sure she has. I don't know. Okay. No, she hasn't. She agrees with me.
Oh, okay. Sorry, never mind.
Because she knew I had strep too. She doesn't want to lose budget of our household to confirming what we already knew. Why can't I confirm that any other way? Why do I have to pay $500 to confirm what I already know?
Because there's no guarantee that was what you actually had.
Fine.
Do you know how rampant the flu is right now?
Great, fine.
Great, fine. But I should be able to guess and go into a pharmacist and tell them to give me a drug that is bacterial in nature when I could have a viral infection that amoxicillin that you just spent I don't know how much on.
Okay, so I wasted my own money and put myself at risk. Damn it, I'm fucking stupid.
Okay, but then you would then bitch. You're like, well, you shouldn't have let me do that.
No, I wouldn't.
Oh, you would blame yourself for it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
You know, like when I got drunk and backed into my old house, did I get mad at Anheuser-Busch for it? No, my dumb drunk ass backed into my fucking house. It's a simple equation. I made a decision to partake in a substance that fucks with my brain and my ability to drive, and I decided to drive anyway. My fault. Now, do I acknowledge that there are some complications and it gets a little sketchy and people would take advantage and do some weird shit? Fuck yeah.
But
you know what?
I don't think that should.
You're
be
right.
A thing
We should
whatsoever.
protect. We should protect those who can't protect themselves by taking the ability for anybody who could make a rational decision by themselves away from them. Right? So a fucking doctor can't prescribe themselves drugs. That would be illegal, right?
Correct.
So a doctor, theoretically, who knows exactly what's going on, because they're a fucking doctor, would go pay $500. It's
truth
fair.
Be told, could probably call or probably have the doctor in the same department that they're in.
Right. Okay.
They're like, hey,
because that's
I took a strep.
That's a reasonable world to live in.
But they're also smart enough to know that, hey, I can take a strep swab myself.
I can take a strep swab myself. Why can't I
know
take
I
one?
can't prescribe myself something, but I have just actually 100% diagnosed myself with something. I can't write myself my own script.
And I'm asking why can't I do that?
I can go to someone else and say, hey, I just tested positive. I can't write my own amoxicillin prescription.
So you agree that somebody should be able to diagnose themselves? Why can't I?
I agree that a doctor should have the ability to diagnose themselves because they have the actual fucking knowledge of it.
Right, spitting on a thing and putting it in a tube and waiting for it to change the color because that's what the test does takes a fucking doctor's degree. Right? You need to be.
What are you
need to have a
advocating
fucking
for?
PhD to be able to do that.
We should have more over-the-counter tests for different conditions?
That'd be a
Is that
good
what
start.
you want?
Sure, that'd be a good start.
Okay.
Be a great start.
That'd be great if that was the thing, but most at-home tests are not as accurate as an actual lab test.
Right, because stupid people are too stupid.
Because lab conditions are literally lab conditions.
Because stupid
it's not
people are
doing
too
it in
stupid
your
to take care of
bathroom.
themselves and need to be taken care of by Big Brother. It's cool. Big Brother's fine.
Are we done?
What?
Are we done?
Do you really want to quit because I don't think it's okay that we're just all considered stupid and we're too dumb?
Because you're going down this whole attitude route here, and I don't like it.
Okay, I will try to back off the attitude of that part of it. I don't understand. Okay,
We're not debating anymore now. It's like it's Big Brother, blah 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 blah. I mean,
right? Because
we can play that game too.
Who are you defending? Like right now, who are you defending with your side of the argument?
In your story, the doctor side of it in the clinic.
Okay, so your hypothetical doctor, where I was like, a doctor could prescribe.
I mean, just like when I was in the service department industry, somebody came in like, "Hey, our brakes are bad. Change the brake pads." We wouldn't do that.
Why not? Is it your fault?
Huh?
Is it your fault that their brake pads aren't bad, and you replace them anyway? What was wrong with the car?
No, or sorry, we say, or somebody came in and it's like, "Hey, someplace told me this part is bad, and you just to go ahead and replace it. I don't want to pay diagnostic charges. I just want you to go ahead and replace this part."
I mean,
that's something we would never do, flat out.
And that's the policy of your company. I understand what you mean. Okay.
There was a reason that we had that policy.
What was the reason?
Because if we're going to do our work, anything that we do, we have a warranty on the work because we put our name on it. Just like if a doctor gets some shit wrong and misdiagnose you, you have recourse for that. Like, hey, you misdiagnosed me.
Okay, so if
But
I came in and said, hey,
in my case, if someone's saying, hey, we're still going to make sure, and we're still going to charge you half-hour diagnostic to make sure that whatever we do is the correct fix. So you coming in and saying, I've got strep, I don't blame them for not taking you at the word.
That's fine.
Even just
I'm
because your son just had strep.
I'm not even disagreeing with that part.
Well, you seem kind of huffy-puffy about, like, I already told you I had strep. Yeah, you have strep.
Okay.
We already knew that.
Okay, that's fine.
You did not know 100% that you had strep.
You're right. I didn't. Let's go back to the beginning of this. For 1 hour that I spent in the building as a whole.
Right.
For 1 hour and one test.
Right.
That was it. Because I was right, but that doesn't matter. You're right. I could have been wrong. For 1 hour and one test is $450. Explain that part to me.
You never explained what the charges were.
That's all it says. It says medical services, $450. Period. That's all it says on the bill.
Okay. I don't know if they actually did much of a breakdown.
Nope.
No breakdown of the test itself.
Nope. Doesn't even mention the test on there. It just says medical services, $450.
Gotcha. I mean, that's just their generic, I'm assuming, just lumped in charge of
$450
nurse
an hour?
practitioner. Yeah, essentially running that building. Having the reception up front is a cost to that company. Having the nurse practitioner come in and see you, having the doctor come in and see you.
It wasn't both. It was a nurse and maybe a practitioner.
Okay.
I don't. Oh, okay. I don't.
You went to a walk-in clinic.
Okay. So the ER was going to be cheaper?
No, that's what I was about to say. Did you want to go to an ER and pay even more?
I mean, it would be the same question. I mean, I'd have the same question on their side.
Did you call your primary care physician and see if they could get you in?
It was after hours. It was 5:30 by the time I had a chance. So it was literally like...
Were you feeling that shitty that you felt the need to go to a non-emergency clinic?
I mean, if the honest answer to that question, which you're not going to like because I'm an attitudey bitch, is like I already knew the answer and I just wanted my fucking drugs.
Okay.
I knew exactly what was going to happen, and I wanted the drugs that I needed to get better sooner. I didn't want to wait till tomorrow so that I had one more day on the cycle to get through the antibiotic. That is why I went after hours. I mean,
I don't know what to tell you.
I
mean, you made a choice to go to
a
walk-in clinic,
and so the world we live
which
in,
are always more expensive than going to just your primary care physician.
And the world we live in,
more better. I mean, blame it on your fucking insurance.
I'm not blaming. I'm blaming on medical system at large.
I'm sure you're out of network. I can almost assure you that the place that you went was considered out of network.
I'm surprised they took insurance at all.
True. They got what they could.
And I'm excited.
Well, I
they
mean,
took it
even out of network still does a percentage.
Okay, so where do we actually start this conversation? We were talking about dead people
about
in Canada.
You going to
No, we were talking about. My phrase was as. It's not about whether or not Canada's system is good or not. I just can guarantee you that ours is bad, and I'm going to tell you a story of why. And so what you did the entire time was defend why the system is good. And that's what I get all dysfunctional about.
No, I'm not defending the system whatsoever.
You absolutely are because you're not offering a solution, and the solution I was offering was asinine and bullshit and stupid people, Big Brother thing that I fell into my little rabbit hole of was too ridiculous for you to talk about. Right?
No, it wasn't worth me trying to push back on your version of
because
this is why everything's all fucked up.
I'm offering a ridiculous solution, but I'm offering a solution. And in the specifics of my case, I don't think my solution was that ridiculous. And I understand where you're coming from on your defense of the medical system as far as we don't want people taking drugs and getting access to medicines or self-diagnosing and shit like that. I get the premise of that. I agree or not, it's not really important, but I get the premise of that.
There's no premise of it.
So I don't see any solutions at play here. Is the problem I have, and the one solution I put out is to let us be big kids and try to take care of ourselves. Not saying doctors shouldn't exist, and not saying we shouldn't go see doctors, but saying the requirement of them being the gatekeeper to the medicine I know I need, I have a problem with, because I am capable of making that decision for myself, and if diagnostics were available to me as a general person in the public, I would be capable of not only having a feeling of which direction I need to go, but also being able to actually directly diagnose through diagnostics what I think I already know and have now data proof to go with my assumption to then get the medicine I need. That was the whole, my whole point is how ridiculously expensive it is to go through a simple process, which was my story. It was a simple story. I was 90% sure. Yes, you're right. The test that they gave me confirmed that. I was not 100%. I was 90% sure. Maybe I had alcohol poisoning. It was just sticking around too long. But I was pretty confident in my decision or my thought process on what was going on. And I got the confirmation from them. It shouldn't cost me $500 for confirmation of what I'm pretty sure I already know. That's my point. I get what you're saying. I could have been wrong, and they would have gone on to other things. Do you think it would have stayed $450 if they would have gone on to other tests? No.
Hard to say.
No.
They didn't give you a very good breakdown, it sounds like.
And I'm pretty sure you know the answer is no. If they would have done more tests, there would have been more cost. And there should be more cost. Because those tests cost money.
After that, I think it would have been smart of them to do a flu test after that just with how widespread it is at the moment.
I get it. I'm just saying, if they're going to do more tests, they're going to do, I would think there'd be more cost in that. That in and of itself is ridiculous to me.
I would say a walk-in clinic.
We're talking fucking cancers and lymphoma and other crazy shit and stuff like that. Sure. Yes. Have the highest bar to make sure the smartest people are doing all they can to figure out what the right thing is and the right course of action is. But little basic shit, like strep, it's $500. It's ridiculous. Now, fine.
What is the fix for strep?
Antibiotics.
Okay. What have we ever becoming a problem with in hospitals?
Oh, antibiotic-resistant shit, because we take too much antibiotics.
Okay, cool. So anyone should be able to just go into their pharmacist and, hey, I need some antibiotics.
You're right. So, but what we should do is make it a cost prohibitive, not a need prohibitive. That's what we should do. That's what what are you saying if you're not saying that? I'm
having an actual diagnostic of it before they say, hey, yes, you do need antibiotics. Not you could. Here you go.
Oh, okay. So it's a cost prohibitive that's at play, because to be able to get that diagnostics that you agree with,
yes,
there's a cost
there's
involved.
Going to be a cost to get properly diagnosed, which makes it so you're gonna have to pay just to even get my antibiotics when I'm probably right.
I mean, whatever. I'm not even gonna go down that rabbit hole. I will even grant
yes, there's a paywall for getting antibiotics.
I mean, that's not the way I put it, but I don't disagree with your phrasing. Is that not accurate?
I'm being sarcastic with you. Yes, there's a.
Is that not accurate? You said it as a joke, but it's a true statement.
No.
I have to see it.
Depending on the situation.
You're right.
Depending on the situation.
Right. If I have a friend that's a doctor who I can call and be like, hey, prescribe this for me. then there's not a paywall.
Now, if you're poor enough to get on Medicaid, or if you have good enough insurance that you don't have diagnostic tests.
Right. How do you get good enough insurance? Because you pay for it. So it's either you're either too poor, too rich, or know somebody.
Or work for the state.
Yeah, that's fair. Do they get sent here automatically being state employees?
They don't get tent care, but they get much better health insurance that most people do through typical large medical insurance corporations.
Well, still, but then you're still too good. I mean,
you're still paying for it in the long run, or in the.
Well, but it's subsidized by state taxes.
By you being a state employee.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I don't. Do you have a inverse, an alternate solution to my complete do whatever the fuck you want with your life premise of healthcare?
I mean, honestly, if I was in your situation, I probably would have waited till the next morning and gotten into my primary care physician.
Well, I mean,
but that's me knowing that, having gone to walk-in clinics in the past and know that they charge out the nose, because you are paying them a premium for essentially going through a drive-through doctor's clinic. You're paying them for that kind of quote-unquote after-hours whatever service.
Right. I hear what you're saying, but that's not the question. That's not the question I was asking. The question I'm asking is the larger solution to the healthcare problem that we have in this country. Is single payer, is that where you're at? You want single payer?
I think it works better than what we have, yes.
I mean, you can't get better than the worst, or you can't get worse than the worst.
I mean, there's worse options.
Witch doctors, blowing
that.
tobacco smoke up your ass or whatever.
Got that. Did hear an interesting story. There was a guy, I guess, was able to get in with, it was some kind of indigenous American tribe, and it was kind of like their healer or whatever, and they actually gave him like one of the tricks of like kind of how they would like prove that they were healing someone of something. And they would take like bird feathers and put it in their mouth, but the guy would actually bite like inside of his gum to make it look like blood. And if somebody was sick or whatever, you kind of like was sick in their stomach. You put their mouth on your stomach and kind of pretend like you were sucking out like the sickness or the bad spirits or whatever.
Oh, and then you bleed all over the feathers, spit them out, and be like,
right, like yeah, there goes all the bad juju.
I mean,
but he actually like was able to like interview someone that actually told him like it's probably a secret that was only passed down from like shaman to shaman to shaman.
Well, because I mean, there's data to back up the
but I think there's
mind
also,
over matterness to it.
Exactly, and that
the
was
placebo effect, whatever it's called.
I think that was actually what the episode was actually about, was the placebo effect. Those people just thinking that they've just been healed.
And I think one of the things that the internet has done to it was really ruined that. I think that like people self-diagnosing on the internets and going to everybody's.
I can't imagine being a doctor right now. Be like, no, I looked this up on WebMD. I have this, and like walk in with a piece of paper, like, hey, I already diagnosed myself.
It's like, cool, bro.
Yeah, like I'm gonna go ahead.
But I mean, at some point though, like realistically though, again,
check your reflexes.
Not getting all weird about it.
Yeah.
But realistically though, at some point, AC's talked about this a lot as a medical professional. One of the things he has an issue with is the idea of informed consent. Like the idea is supposed to be that you, patient, and your and family, are consenting to let us do this procedure, whatever it is, right? But the informed part is pretty tough,
right? Oh, totally.
And it's like, well, this guy goes to WebMD or whatever and informs himself wrong, but is trying to inform himself. At some point, the doctor's got to throw their hands up and be like, well, I'm not going to give you the diagnosis that you want, but I'm not going to work with you either.
Right.
Because I can't. And again, go to the free-ish version of it. It's like, well, you diagnose yourself however you want. And if it fucking kills you, it kills you. I can't help you. You can't put that responsibility on a doctor when the patient will give them the opportunity. It's like, how many times you go there, like, I mean, you probably don't because you're skinny, you fucking asshole. But every time I go to the doctor, it's like, you need to lose weight. Like, I know I lose weight. You need to lose some weight. You're a little too heavy. You go on a diet. You need to eat less. You need to exercise more. That kind of shit. I mean, and recently, and I find it interesting, is my doctor's office doesn't really like. They're like, yeah, you could. They don't really push it. Like they're just like, we've been through this enough times, not just with you individually, but with people at large. We don't even really,
You think it's on your chart now? They're like,
yeah,
we've already brought up the weight thing. Like, he's not doing anything. Don't bring
right.
it up
And
again.
so at some point they just, and it's, you can't blame him for that. And I don't blame him for that. And like, it's like, yeah, I need to lose a little weight. I need to get back to exercise a little more. I was doing well for a little bit and just kind of fell off, and I need to get back into the habit of those kind of things. But like last time I went for my general monthly or annual or whatever, that was the conversation. It was me going, yeah, I need to get back into these things. It was not them pushing it as a thing. Because I think that's fair of them. I don't blame them for that. I don't think it's their responsibility to beat a dead horse. At some point, your fat ass is going to be a fat ass, and they can't do anything about it. I have to make that decision for myself. They can't make that decision for me.
True.
But they can make all these other decisions for me. I have to have them make those decisions for me.
What? So you realize they can't force you to exercise because they don't have control of you outside of when you leave the doctor's office.
But they do have control.
That's the same of you want to come in and tell them how you're sick and what kind of medicine you want. That then you should have free reign when you go into their office.
That was a throwaway stab, but I mean it still kind of tracks. Is that at some point they have to rationalize the fact that they can't make me do anything. Where I'm kind of pushing back on it is
right. Same thing. When they prescribe you medicine, they can't make you take that medicine either.
But I also have to rationalize with the fact that I can't get things without them, and that's on me. I have to make that same way they gave up on telling me I'm too fat. I need to give up on. I have to ask permission. I just have to ask permission for what I know I need for myself.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to roll that back that way. I apologize. That was not where I was trying to go.
Gotcha.
I'm trying to discuss. I am open to solutions. I want to hear. I want to hear solutions. I want to hear something to fix the issues.
There's no simple solution. And
I didn't say that. Who said simple? I didn't say anything about simple.
I don't even think there's. I mean, I don't think there is one particular simple fix to it. It is a complex issue that does differ from country to country. I mean, I think we're reading Thailand has free healthcare for anyone. Like, even if you're a tourist. Sorry, I was struggling to find the word tourist. If you're a tourist and shit happens, they don't charge you. I want to say it was Thailand that I read.
That's legit, I guess. I don't know. Is the service any good? Like, you actually get people taken care of?
I think a lot of people go there for plastic surgery, which is elective. It's not free.
No. That's another one on Alistair from the Angry thing. Like, apparently they are approved for their top half reconstruction, which, again, my understanding of it is female to male. So it's a breast reduction.
Right. Mastectomy.
Who's approving it? I don't understand that.
Doctor.
Well, but in a comment, it was medically necessary. I had to get proof that it was medically necessary. It's not medically necessary. Even if you're a dude, it's not medically.
Medical review board, most likely.
I'm just saying, it does that. That sounds ridiculous to me. That you need approval to cut your tits off.
I mean, unless you wanted to pay for it as an elective, but I'm assuming to get it covered in Canada under their pay
This person
system.
lives here in Knoxville.
Gotcha.
And maybe that's what. Maybe you're right.
Maybe
it's an insurance thing, which that makes zero fucking sense too. But
it may be that specific doctor as well. I mean,
that seems
just like there's plastic surgeons that will, there's some woman that wants to look like Barbie doll, and she's had something ridiculous over 200 different plastic surgeries.
Yeah,
it's probably from the same fucking doctor that's just raking in the fucking money,
take the money,
and just doesn't give a shit anymore. No matter what
I watched Nip
next
Tuck.
thing they may just fuck some shit up.
Nip Tuck was great. It was a fun show.
I mean, it's how many times can you redo a nose before it just
you turn into Michael Jackson?
You can't do anything anymore.
That was the Michael Jackson thing.
Yeah.
But to me, it's I don't know. Maybe you're right. Maybe it was for an insurance purposes kind of thing, and that's why they needed to make it medically necessary so that some insurance.
Right. It wasn't completely elective. It was.
I mean, it's
doctor
still
recommended.
It's
essentially
still completely elective, either way. But
you could argue for
that's
it.
a weirdism in that. Again, that's a system issue, and that's what I'm trying to. That's what I want to have a bigger conversation.
You could argue it is medically necessitative and mental health.
I mean, I think that would be the only argument at play.
Right.
But
but you're saying it's still elective.
Okay, so if I could convince a doctor to say it was medically necessary for my mental health that I had a 6-pack, could I go get a plastic surgeon to get a 6-pack and my insurance to cover it? Would that be a reasonable conversation to have?
Depending on how well it was written up to the insurance company, you may get that covered.
I mean, that seems pretty ridiculous to me.
Sometimes it's not what you say, it's in how you say it.
That's why I started off with if I could convince.
Right.
But I mean, is it medically necessary? Is there anywhere in any textbook for doctors that says there's a medical necessity for anybody to ever have a 6-pack?
I wouldn't quite compare that with apples to apples and a mastectomy versus giving you 6-pack abs.
For my mental health? Is it positive for my mental health?
And yes, and that vague grouping of mental health, yes.
I mean, again, I'm not trying to downplay the need or want for this surgery for this person. I'm not trying to say that they don't deserve to have this option to live their best life looking the way they want to look. But to make it a medical necessity before, as opposed to an elective surgery. Okay, let's go back to my doctor jokingly giving up on telling me to lose weight. Well, can I be like, hey, you're right, I do need to lose weight. Is it medically necessity? Can we make it a medical necessity so that I can get liposuction or something and the insurance will pay for it? Because it's really a cosmetic. But it would help, right? It's a medical necessity. It'd be good for my general health.
When it gets to the point that there are points where that is covered, like I don't know if they still do stomach stapling or if it's just a lap band surgery.
Yeah, lap band or whatever. Yeah.
To where I think it does get to a point to where that is considered medical necessity, essentially for the health and well-being of the patient at that point.
Like, is there a criteria at play? Is there like a number of
I'm
triglycerides or something?
Yeah, I'm sure there's some kind of
I don't know. It's just
body mass index type.
I guess the point I'm getting to is that it seems to me that there's probably clearly a line between a cosmetic and a physical medical necessity.
I wouldn't say it's a fine line. I'd say it's a little bit of a gray area in between.
But
Notice you called that
it's
one
significant
of our episodes.
What?
Yeah, notice you titled that one of our episodes or something like that.
What, medical? It's all gray area.
Yeah,
or something
it's all
like
gray
that?
area. Yeah. I do say that a lot. I'm bad about that.
I mean, I don't care. It's fine. You have
it's true because there is a fluctuation with a lot of things.
The problem I have with the phrase, though, is that is your way to stop talking about it. And it's like I acknowledge.
I'm not trying to stop. I'm just trying to say.
Well, but again, like
I'm still trying to look at it from an objective perspective.
But
as well.
but again, like right now, the conversation was, how do we make this system at large better? Talking about Alistair and her tit removal, talking about me and my angry bullshit about the fucking strep throat thing, talking about this stuff.
Right.
What
was my initial answer to you wanting I didn't say there was a lot of gray area.
The way the I think the agreement that we have come to is that there's a problem with the system that we are in,
right?
And I have a solution, and you think my solution is ridiculous, and that's fine. You're allowed to disagree with my solution, but what I'm asking for is your version of it. Give me something.
You're picking a very minute part of the healthcare system and thinking you found a solution, where you want me to find a grand solution to the healthcare system itself.
Okay, then pick one thing and give me a solution to it. I don't give a shit. Give me one of your versions of bullshit that you've had to
narrow
fucking
it down
deal with.
if that's what the fuck you want, but you're trying to say you've come up with a solution when you're I think people should have
what
be able to get
number
a flu test at home.
You do get a flu test at home. You can go to Ballgames and get a flu test right now. You should be able to get any basic test, any simple testing. I think it should be fucking easily available.
I mean, I agree with
I've
you
got,
in the
I've got 4 COVID tests in my bedroom.
Right, and none of those say they're 100% accurate either.
And neither is the one that they use at the doctor's office.
I'd say it's more accurate than the one they give you to take home.
Okay.
Do you think in their lab office they've just got a stack of those at-home tests they're just doing them with? No, that's not how they do a test.
That's
fucking get mad, get angry.
What episode are we on?
I have no idea. You were asking the wrong person, sir.
So my lazy way to figure out what episode we're going on is go to the website. And
Well, there was a debate of like how they were being counted in general.
there is a there.
Because I think
it's
for
more
a
than
while the
Right.
numbers kept going
So
up, and then you
we were
started
working
subdividing.
we're on 246. There's definitely a bunch more than that. Not a ton. We're probably rolling on 300, give or take. Right. We have talked probably episode 1. We were sports and politics. I remember that specifically, but very quickly in the first
So
10
you have to go back and listen to the first one.
in the first 10 episodes, I guarantee you we started talking healthcare shit. Because when did we start? We didn't mean to.
Right when COVID was starting.
Right. We have had more healthcare conversations on here than I can fucking count.
Yeah.
And every single time we have healthcare conversations, we agree that this thing is fucked.
Right.
So to say that you haven't spent any time thinking about any solutions to any of this fucking problem, I'm not okay with. I have a solution. I have a grand solution, and it's a fucking shitty one, and everybody's going to hate me for it. But my grand solution is the same one I have: is that make it as self individually available and responsible as possible. Not to not have doctors, not to not have nurses, not to not have things in place, but the onus is on you to take care of yourself. The onus is on you to put forth the effort to do the things, and the onus is on you to be smart enough with what you put in your body to have the outcome that you are desiring for your body. The idea that there are people in between me and the things that I need for my body to work correctly seems ridiculous. Now, I can acknowledge the idea, especially with some of the opiates and shit like that, that'll fucking kill you sideways if you're too dumb to moderate your usage of it or whatever the fuck you want to call it. But I take, and this is a general concept in government as a whole, and things that the government is involved in as a whole, is that the idea that some bureaucrat in D.C. or Nashville or downtown Knoxville is smarter than I am about my life is problematic to me. And the idea that I am smart enough to tell you or my neighbor over here or over there what they're supposed to do with their life is problematic to me. That is the core principle that I live my life by. A, what my neighbor does is none of my fucking business. B, I have zero right to tell my neighbor what to do with their life. That's about the corest of my principles as I can boil it down to in the simplest form. And so for my neighbors, whether those are my neighbors here in Knox County, state of Tennessee, the United States of America, telling me how I can and can't use substances with my body, I have a problem with that. Putting up gates and divisions and things between me and what I want to do with my life, I have a problem with. That's the core principle I kind of operate off of.
Okay.
And so when we put it into a very specific medical situation conversation, like my stupid thing with strep, I break down off of that core principle of how I live, and that's how I apply how I think it should be. Because you, my actual physical neighbor, the guy across the street, the guy in Washington State, I have zero influence over you and how you do your things. Now you, because you're my friend, is a little different. But these general people, I have zero influence over them. It's none of my fucking business. If that guy that lives in D.C. or Washington State or whatever wants to kill himself with heroin, who the fuck am I to tell him not to? It's none of my fucking business. That's how I live my life. And that's why that's how I base principle most of how I look at things. You have no right to hurt people. It's the non-aggression principle. This is the libertarian. If you want to go back to the real libertarianism that I actually do believe in, it's the non-aggression principle. You have no right to start a fight. You have every right to finish a fight. You have no right to start one. In private property law. If it's mine, it's mine. That's it. It's mine. I can do whatever the fuck I want with it. I struggle with that one a little bit. That one's I'm a little less pure libertarian on. But my yard, my land, my house, my things, I have 100% right to those. No one else has any right to any of them.
Except for the
bank. Well, the bank does because I have an agreement with the bank for my house. Because I don't own my house. You're right. The bank owns my house. Right. But I have an agreement with my bank that I operate the house. But so that's how I look at finding solutions to the problems that we're talking about. And so while it's ridiculous and crazy and whatever, that it all comes back to the core principle of how I look at it.
Gotcha.
And
that's not something I ponder upon very often.
I'm open to conversation about different ways.
The American healthcare system.
Because I think the number one reality that I've come to, especially through doing the show, and why I take libertarianism off as a banner for me, is because we've talked about it a ton, that we have our 3 levels of government here. Well, 4 for some of us if you live in the city. But we have our state, federal, local, right? And how I feel politically, philosophy changes very specifically by which one we're talking about. Like, I want a full-on anarcho-capitalist federal government. I want the smallest, tiniest, least influential federal government we can figure out how to do. And then I want a little bit more government out of my state, but I want the bulk of my government out of my local. Like, the things that matter, my local should be taken care of.
Not out of the picture. You want the local to be more involved.
Right. The top. Right. So take the most money as a percentage of their tax taking from me, but do the most things.
Right.
Because I think that they're the most capable of actually completing an end to those things.
Should. Yeah.
And doing something about the things that are, and I have more influence on them to take action on those things that I want to do, because I'm an involved citizen and I can go talk to Mayor Jacobs or Kincannon or my different commissioners and counselors and all that kind of shit. They're contactable people here. Where I did talk to Tim Burchett at the parade just for a second. Talked to Becky Massey at the parade for a few minutes. Mm-hmm. She was excited. She was hosting the state champion West Rebels for now. They're going to be something else in the not so distant future, but they're the West Rebels for now. And as part of her parade float, she invited them to jump in.
Soccer team got voted like number 1, like in the U.S.
Nice. I know the girls team did really well too.
The girls team.
Yeah,
sorry,
that was actually
team, yeah.
a good friend's daughter is on that team.
Nice. They got voted in some kind of like weird. It was like a coaching poll, but they got voted like number 1.
Yeah, they're really fucking good.
They were good because we
built them that field.
I don't know if we talked about it on here, but I remember it's like our junior year maybe. They made ESPN, but it wasn't for the right thing. It's because it still dumbfounds me to this day that one of the girls' dads bought the team after they won like state tournament or some shit. Bought them all cigars, which the girls, for whatever reason, and why you would buy cigars for a girls' soccer team, don't know.
A handful of them are 18, but most of them aren't.
Right, but you're still in high school and you're at a school-sponsored event.
Right.
So I think they got like 1 day of IS out of school or in school suspension for smoking. I
got 3. Those bitches.
Yeah, you didn't win state tournament.
I know. I was just a band kid.
Right.
With my cool green shoes.
But I want to say that story like made ESPN.
I still have those somewhere. My green docs.
Yeah.
I still got them somewhere. But I don't know. I would be happy that I think that is. I really do think that is the general solution. Forget the medical thing I was pitching fit about earlier, but I think the general solution is get Biden and Pelosi and McConnell. Those fucks shouldn't matter to our day-to-day life. They shouldn't be the ones we're talking about. So one of the biggest frustrations I've had with the show as we've grown is no matter how hard I try to make it a local show, we can't help ourselves. We're talking about Brittny Griner. We're talking about FTX, which actually that FTX is kind of a crazy cool story. But we're talking about Ukraine war and this kind of shit because we're spending we can't help ourselves but spend all our time because it's such a big part of our lives, both financially and
it's
socially.
A national story, so it just makes it that much kind of bigger. Right,
but I want our governments to flip over. Like I want the mayor, like what do they say? They spent $80 million in the 2-3 weeks or whatever it was for the runoff in Georgia. $80 million were spent.
I think it was more than that. It was something ridiculous.
Maybe it was $800 million.
Yeah, and like the 2 weeks of just this special election or whatever. It's
a crazy fucking number.
Right.
And which functionally changes almost nothing with the way the federal government works, really.
Right. It was already going to be, the Senate was already going to be 50-50. Now it's 51-49.
Right. But it's 50-50 with the tie break going
doesn't have to worry about doing the tiebreaker anymore.
Right. And so it's like, why do I know that Raphael Warnock is one of the senators from the state of Georgia? Shouldn't matter. Why do I know who Nancy Pelosi is? Why do I know who Liz Cheney is or Kristen Sinema?
Nancy Pelosi was Speaker of the House.
Yeah, maybe.
That's like third or fourth?
Third in line for the presidency.
Third.
Yeah, I'll give you that one. Okay, I'll take that one back. But Mitch McConnell, I mean, he was the
fourth, fifth in line. No.
I don't know where the Senate comes into that thing, or whatever. Yeah, but like or what is it, Ron something Johnson out of Wisconsin, or Gretchen Whitmer. Why do I know who these people are? I shouldn't know these fucking names. They're not important.
Yeah, they just had bigger.
I mean, the Gretchen Whitmer story is a crazy fun story, but but I don't need to know these names. It doesn't fucking matter. Todd Kelly out of Arizona. Why? They're not important.
He was an astronaut. He was cool shit, man.
Yeah,
he's got a twin brother.
Right. And they actually were UT students or something shit like that. They have there's a Knoxville
some kind of connection, yeah.
Anyway, point is, like, they shouldn't matter to how I live my life.
I didn't know for a long time. He's married to Gabby Gifford. She was a former congresswoman or
She the one with like one arm or something? Or
she was the one that got shot by someone.
Yeah, she like lost an eye or some shit? Or a leg?
I think she did sustain some brain damage from it. I think it did like strike her in the head or the face somewhere.
Yeah. I don't know. Again, the point being is like, I think we as a populace, the biggest way to fix this shit show,
focus more locally,
is I think we need to not only focus more locally, but we need to flip over the idea that 300 something million people, will show up for like. I mean, better way to look at it is like the largest turnout in Knox County election history was the Biden-Trump race or whatever. And as you go down ballot, the numbers drop for every item on the ticket past that one. It shouldn't make a huge functional difference in your life who the president is. It should make a huge functional difference in your life who the mayor is. That's how it should be. That's what we need to get to. We need to get to where the governor is second to, like when you're going down the list of people that you care about in politics, it starts with your mayor and your commissioner, and then your state rep and your.
I would say our state reps are doing more of my day-to-day life, changing.
I think they are too.
Laws versus what the mayor does.
I think they are too in the current system. I agree with that. But like to me, like I would be perfectly like if I was going to break it down to how I would want it across the board, I would want a almost non-existent federal government, as tiny and as unimportant as we can figure out how to make it. A very Republican core, old school Republican conservative state government with a liberal local government. And that liberal local government having the authority to do liberal things locally. Like I wouldn't be like if Knox County or the city of Knoxville wants to allow abortions, then they should be allowed. Like the state shouldn't have influence over that. If Knox County doesn't want their third graders to be held behind because of some stupid state single test standard,
I thought about that recently.
Then Knox County should be able to make that decision on how to teach their kids, not the state of Tennessee. Like the big things, the things that really matter in your day to day, should be on the local level. I think we should have an agreement. We should, like with that top federal government thing goes, we need to rewrite the Bill of Rights in a very and clarify some of the major civil liberties things that no state or local government can surpass. But past that, let the state and local governments do it. If Oak Ridge and Anderson County doesn't want to allow abortions, good for you. Don't allow them there. But if Knoxville does, suck it. We're going to do it here. I think we need to get very micro in our politics where the power is here, not halfway across the country.
I could get behind that if we had a more engaged populace, but I don't think that is a good idea in our.
I think it works better with a less. I don't think it works better.
Think so whatsoever.
I don't think it works better with a less engaged populace. I apologize for that phrasing. I think it works better than now. I think if you take the current engagement now, that I just illustrated works better, and then the more engaged people get, the better it works from there. Does that make sense?
Yes, but that's an obvious.
You're right.
Yeah, we have 15% of people that go and vote. It's going to get better if more people go and vote. Yes, that is a 100%, given.
Okay, well then fine. Then if that's already a given, then my version works.
You're saying it works great now, and I'm saying it would not work great right now.
I think it would work great right now and would get just as much better as the current.
I think you'd have a lot of people pissed off that probably kicking themselves for not going out and voting. But I think if it was just automatically implemented,
but
tomorrow,
I think it's the other part of it too.
You would have uprising in the streets.
I think, but the other part of it too, I think, is you would have it would. That is the only way you're going to get local engagement. Is that it is clearly, truly.
You finally show them what you can do locally.
Right. What giving local the power to do will immediately get the engagement. It's chicken or the egg, I guess.
Right.
But it's not. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how we could write state law to fix it, and how we could try to get state government to let go, which is stupid. It's just dumb. Tennessee too. Tennessee's supposed to be all. I think it's like top 5 in some polling of most conservative states or whatever. It's like, well, if you're any good at that, then you would leave the fuck. I mean, you're supposed to be the small government people. Let the local do things. But they don't. They overstep that fucking constantly. Any cool, fun stories in a mess? News of the weird. Sam's News of the Weird. That we keep forgetting to set up music for.
I can't say I've read any.
No Florida man story? Nothing?
Whatever.
Couple of kids here.
There was it was the world's oldest tortoise that had its 190th birthday.
Kick ass.
I was like, holy shit! I knew they lived over 100 years, but I didn't think it was getting close to 200.
Yeah, that's
years.
That's old.
I'm not sure exactly where it was, but they said it got to have a salad as its
it does
special meal
every day.
Special meal. Well, I'm sure it was some kind of special meal, special fruit salad or whatever.
A little blue cheese on that bitch, some bacon bits.
Maybe doubt the bacon bits, but
I like a good wedge salad every once in a while. Blue cheese, bacon bits. It's good stuff.
Oh, goody.
All right, well, that's all I got. You gonna do the outro for me?
No, thank you.
I'm real drunk. All right, I can't.
I can wait you out.
Challenge accepted. Challenge failed. Almost Agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Go to the website, almostagreement.com. While you're there, check out Nothing Special, because I got Nothing Special up right now. Favorite podcast provider, all those places. Shout out to Christy for being a great listener. We are the number one on her Spotify playlist of the last year, only because we run long fucking shows. So, anyway, email, apparently, I mean, people know how to message me. Message me, too. We'll talk about the stuff that you want to talk about. Oh, Christy's trying to steal your job, by the way. She wants to be Sam, too. Forgot to talk about that part. Anyway, podcast providers, all those things. Tell people about us. Share things. Send me an email. Tell me how wrong I am. almostagreement@gmail.com. And we'll talk to y'all later. Have a good night.